What's up, NAI Women's Hoop Report Nation? It's your boy Manny here, and welcome to part 2 of our conference preview, where we will be previewing the Cascade and the Mid-South 2 conferences. And I'm very, very excited to talk about it with, of course, my partner in crime, Mr. Darlex, Darlex, thank you so much for jumping back on. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties trying to get this episode recorded, but we knew we were gonna, there's a will, there's a way, so I'm glad we're able to talk about one of the bigger known and better known conferences in the NAIA, in the Mid-South and the Cascade. Like always, I'm gonna give you guys the housekeeping rules with this. When it comes to the information, we are not saying that this is concrete. We do believe, especially if this is your first time listening to the conference previews, I did send out a Google form at the beginning of the year. Some coaches got back, some coaches didn't. Again, nothing against the coaches. I understand they're all busy trying to get ready with their offseason and everything like that. But just letting you guys know that while some of this information we are 100% on, and we're not going to necessarily disclose which is which, we're kind of putting it all together, seeing off of what the roster said, who's in the upperclassmen, who's lowerclassmen, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to kind of go from there. And again, all the numbers that we get from the Cascade and from the school websites themselves. So this episode, we're going to try and do both in one sitting. If not, if we have different clothes, then obviously we didn't do it all in one sitting and we had to come back to it. But we're going to start with the Cascade because it obviously is the bigger of the two conferences in terms of teams, even though they did lose a member this year. And we'll talk about that in a moment here. But Darlex, like we always do, we're going to start calling this, we got to have this a segment, like Darlex's Thoughts, Darlex's Corner, something like that. What was your initial takeaway from the Cascade Conference, a conference that last year had almost a perfect team, and we'll definitely talk about that team in a minute here, but a conference that produces a lot of top contenders when it comes to national tournament, produces a lot of powerhouses in the NAIA. So what was your initial take for the Cascade?
Initially looking at them, it makes sense why they're one of the heavy hitters of the NAIA. Seeing of all the newcomers and the stats that they produce and how efficient they produce them, it definitely makes them a very big powerhouse when it comes to the different conferences in the NAIA for sure.
No, and we're going to definitely, one of the questions that we're going to talk about a little bit different in the sense of it's going to be more of a general broaded question in what the Cascade, at least what I noticed, and I think you noticed it too, something very unique about them when it comes to the way a lot of these teams play. But before we do that, we're going to obviously talk about the graphics and give you guys a recap from last year in the Cascade. So the Cascade made up of 12 teams last year. You see your standings here. Southern Oregon was the number 1 and the regular season champions. Oregon Tech, number 2. Lewis and Clark, Eastern Oregon, College of Idaho, Bushnell, Corbin, and Evergreen rounded out the conference postseason tournament contenders. And then the Northwest, Multnomah, Walla Walla, and Warner Pacific were the teams that were outside looking in when it came to tournament time. And then you see it as well there. Southern Oregon, Oregon Tech, Lewis and Clark, Eastern Oregon, and College of Idaho all made the national tournament. We move over now to a recap of last year's postseason awards, so to speak. Again, your regular season and tournament champions were Southern Oregon. There's your all-conference team. Again, a lot of these conferences are going to do all conferences differently. As you can see, there's the Cascade has one all-conference team, and then you have your honorable mentions there to the bottom right, and your postseason awards going to the following members there: Morgan Braid, Player of the Year; Eliza Delgilio, Southern Oregon's 6th Woman of the Year; Jalen Sackrider and Emma Schwarnerback, Defensive Player of the Years; Co-Defensive Player of the Years; Jersey Ureta, Freshman of the Year; and then Coach of the Year going to Carlotta Kalapurg. And then Corbin also won Team Sportsmanship of the Year. Definitely wanted to give them their flowers for that because I think that's definitely an underrated award. And a lot of these conferences give out Champion of Character, so I think it's always good when you give out a team award like that. We're going to talk about the questions, and we're going to talk about the 3 main questions, as well as obviously our contenders or our tiers list at the end with contenders, playoff locks at the door, and then your break right teams. For me personally, I'm kind of excited to talk about the Cascade because, and I guess we can go right into with the first question. The Cascade, is it just a make or miss conference? And what I mean by that is not necessarily obviously making shots. I'm more so talking about the 3-point percentage that I saw from a lot of these teams. It was actually more noticeable than the other conferences. I'm not going to sit here and say we've looked at all the conferences already because we're only in episode 2, obviously. So we've only touched on 4 conferences, and we're currently obviously getting ready for the next 2. But even still, it feels like the Cascade has had some heavy hitters when it comes to shooting the basketball. We look at Southern Oregon, it's obviously the first team and the team arguably to beat. Last year, 34-1, 22-0 in the Cascade, almost perfect. Made it to, I believe it was the Elite 8. But their three-point percentage, 38.3% from the three-point line. Then you look over at Oregon Tech. They were 29.7. Then you look at the third seed that was Lewis and Clark State, 31.8 three-point percentage. And as I continue to go, I found myself always writing the three-point percentage for all these teams because it felt like that was where their style kind of leaned towards. I'm not going to say that we've seen the Cascade play a lot because it could be, a run and gun, fast-paced game. It could be a lot of swing, getting the defense rotating, and you get open threes like that, or offensive rebounds, kick out, best time to shoot the 3. So did you have the same takeaway? Did you feel like the Cascade's unique element is the fact that there's a lot of teams that if you're not shooting very well at the wrong time of the year, it could be the end of your season a little bit earlier than you maybe thought?
Oh, definitely. Especially since we're starting off with Southern Oregon. For one of their best players, Bridget McIntyre, to be shooting so efficiently at almost 45% from the 3, that is a very big highlight as far as what Southern Oregon can do and how they even reach as far as the tournament and what the Cascade is capable of. I've definitely seen that there is a frequency that comes with their 3-point shooting, and like what we've talked about, it really does depend on how a given night goes for some of these conferences and some of these teams. Whichever team shoots the ball the best, more consistently, more efficiently in that game, those series, that tournament, it's more realistically who's going to come out on top.
And obviously, living or dying by three-pointer is a very dangerous way to live because, like you said, if you go cold at the wrong time, that could be the end, not just of that game, but could be the end of your season if it definitely does not go in your favor. But when we look at the three-point field goal percentage last year, this is the order that it went. Southern Oregon led with 38.3. Then Corbin at 33.1, College of Idaho 32, Eastern Oregon 32, Monmouth 32, Lewis and Clark 31, Evergreen 30. We got past halfway through the conference, and all of them were above 30%. And then the lowest was Bushnell at 27, but that kind of shows you a range there where 38 is really good, but 27 is not bad. There are some teams out there in the NAIA, and I'm sure Bushnell, Warner Pacific Northwest, they want to shoot better than 27 and 28%, but that's not bad. Like, that's not a bad percentage to shoot from the three-point line, which goes to show you can be in a okay. Like, if you put any of those 3 teams I just mentioned in another conference, you could probably at least middle of the pack. I'm not going to say they're going to be the best shooting team in the conference for three-point percentage, but they're going to be middle of the pack. They're going to be pretty good. They'll get hot. They'll go cold, kind of type of thing.
They'll hold their weight.
Exactly. But then you go in Cascade, you're like, no, that's bottom of the conference. That kind of shows you the three-point importance, I think, that we're going to have to put when we look at these teams here. Because like you mentioned, the Southern Oregon team, while their three-point percentage was high, it also shows when you're guarding three-point percentage. Because in a conference like this, we just mentioned
you can't give it up too much.
Bushnell and Warner Pacific, they were 27% respectively each, 27.5 and 27.3. Southern Oregon, where they were guarding the three-pointer, their opponent's three-point percentage, that was 28.4%. So that basically means when Southern Oregon is playing playing in these games, they're forcing their opponents to shoot the worst in the conference, arguably. Again, obviously, this is your entire season, not just conference stats. But that, I feel like, is more indicative of how good the Southern Oregon team was. They understood to be the best in the Cascade, to go perfect in the Cascade, which is very hard to do. You got to guard three-pointer very well. You got to scramble out there. You got to run these shooters off the line. You got to basically trade threes instead of twos for threes. I'd rather you force a mid-range pull-up than give them a contested 3 even, giving them a wide-open 3. So I do think Southern Oregon's biggest thing is going to be their defense. Can they guard against a three-pointer the way they did last year? Because while you're returning a Bridget McIntyre, who is an all-conference member, like you mentioned, Eliza, who was obviously the 6th Woman of the Year and all-conference member, and the not only Coach of the Year, but the Women's Basketball Coaches Association Coach of the Year and coach, that is going to be a big thing because you're losing offensively Morgan Bride, Megan McIntyre, Emma Schmorbach. That's right there, 15 points from Morgan, 10 from Megan, 11 from Emma. You're losing a lot of offense.
And defensive player of the year.
And defensive player of the year in Morgan. So you're losing a lot of the offensive flow there. And while I think they're going to do very well, I think I'm looking at a good recruiting class here. They're bringing about 10 new players. There's 3 freshmen they're very excited about and a transfer that they're very, very interested in and that could impact their game right away. Because of their defense, that's where I'm kind of looking at this team still being the standard in the Cascade. I'm curious about their offense. Can they put up 76, almost 77 points per game? That I feel like is going to be the question for me. Because on the flip side, while keeping your opponents under 53.9 points per game is very hard to do, I think they can still do it because I've been a defensive guy. You know me. I'm defense over offense. So, there's that saying, defense travels. You can go play anywhere in the Cascade and you're going to be able to play defense. You might not always be able to hit shots when you're on the road or even at home if you're going through a slump. So I'm very excited to see defensively what they're going to continue to do, and then offensively, can they find it? I do want to say Bridget and Eliza, that duo, I think they're going to take another jump. I would love to see, maybe Eliza gets into that starting spot. I'm not sitting here completely just my opinion. You figure she might be a good contender to be in there, but she's also proven to be able to be a good player off the bench. Because while I'm a big defensive guy, I'm also big on, if you're not starting, that doesn't matter.
Understanding your role. I was the exact same way, that.
You clearly were the best player off the bench last year. Why fix it if it ain't broke? But if he does be in that starting spot, obviously that's more touches, that's more shooting. She shot 34% from the three-point line. Bridget shot 44% from the three-point line. I think she'll be able to get to about 15 points a game now, probably being the number one option, I would say. But that's the biggest thing. Offensively, can this Southern Oregon team continue to do that at that level? Maybe it comes down to 70, 68, which is maybe a little bit harder to do now. But if the defense sticks where I think it's going to stick at, I think the Southern Oregon team is going to be more than capable of, maybe not necessarily repeating. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to be, if you told me Southern Oregon or the field, I'd probably still say the field, but they're going to be a very, very hard team to beat. And 22-0, it's hard to do once. I wouldn't be surprised if they get close to it next year. But then we go to the second seed. We go to Oregon Tech here, another team that shot the ball very, very well last year from the three-point line. But again, 29.7, very good. You round up, that's about 30%, but that only gives them 8th. They're 8th in the conference. They're the first team under 30. For Oregon Tech, though, I'm very excited about this team because they're returning 11 players. That's a good bunch there. And specifically speaking here, they're returning a player that didn't play last year but has been a part of the team in Olivia Sparga. I hope I said that right. She did not play last year, but in 2024, she was an All-American. She put up 17 and 6 a night, 36% from the three-point line on 6 attempts. I always feel like when you talk about percentages, especially three-point percentage in this day and age, efficiency is the name of the game. You can't just say I shoot 40% when I'm only shooting 2 shots a game. That's not really going to coincide there. But 6 attempts a night, 39, almost 37% from the three-point line. To add a player like that without really having to go through the typical new player into the system stuff of, I got to find my role. I got to find my niche. I got to find what best fits me in this team. This is a play and play. This is like adding in a player without actually having to add in a player. She's been around the program. She knows what she has to do. I'm very excited to see what she is going to bring back, especially offensively, because like we just mentioned, that is going to be the biggest thing for me, at least from this Oregon Tech team. And then you add in, I'm sure you're going to talk about it, with a Gabby Gascon, a Tatum Skarnerback, and a Josie Ramos. This returning group that they have, I'm very excited to see what they do, leading by Olivia and her coming back to be on the court for this Oregon Tech team.
Definitely. And like you said, I am going to mention it because Gascon almost 3 steals a game, very much being that front runner for defense, what it seems. The only lacking piece from this Oregon team is, like we said, for a difference being made within the game. But as we're seeing with this Cascade Conference, it's 3 points. And with them being on the lower bunch of it all, you'd think it was 8th in the conference. With them being so low, that's what kept them at the number 2 seed, but it's also what kept them from possibly being number 1 or even, going further in the tournament.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing because, like you mentioned, you're the 2 seed, but you were 8th in 3 points. So, there's clearly a thing where we can get up, and you don't got to be 2 in the 3-point percentage department, but get to the top end of the conference, top 6, you know what I'm saying, top 5.
Yeah.
Now that's an extra 6 to 9 points a night. That's where we're looking at when we're talking about the 3-point shooting for them. Coach did kind of get back to me on the Google form, and she actually added in the part of additional information that I gave out to all the coaches. She said, and I'm quoting here, recruiting class is going to be key. So that's why I'm very excited to see the 5 newcomers that they have coming in. What are they going to be able to do? What are they going to be adding into this team that was right there? They were on the cusp of being one of the best in the conference. I'm very excited for this Oregon Tech team. I have them question mark here in my notes. Are they the favorites because of the returning and what you're getting back with Olivia and all that kind of stuff? They might be. I'd be hesitant to say that right now, but there is a world where someone out there, aside from Oregon Tech fans, obviously, said, hey, that team, they really look good because of the returners and because of it's easier to deal with the 3-point percentage issues because it's simple. Granted, it's very hard to do. Just get in the gym. Get in the gym, put up shots. And
exactly.
Sometimes I feel like when it comes to 3-point shooting, a lot of players out there, they don't understand a good and bad shot when it comes to 3-pointers. You know, they say 3-pointer, I'm putting it up. No, you got to find the right ones. There's such a thing as all coaches out there love the swing threes, the one more threes, because that gives you momentum. It feels good. The offense flows. So if those are the type of shots that they're going to start getting, I'm very excited to see what this Oregon Tech team is going to do come Cascade and come the season this year. Second in the Cascade without Gabby and Olivia, huge. That's massive, and that's why I feel like they might be, quote-unquote, the favorites this year because you're adding in players that were already a part of your program back onto the floor. They're healthy. They're ready to get things going. I'm very excited for this Owls team to see what they can do next year. And that brings us to number 3. This Lewis and Clark team, it's a little intriguing. They're a little intriguing. They finished 3rd, like I mentioned, but I think there's a war where they could have been 2nd. I think, and if I'm remembering correctly, they were in the Cascade Conference Championship game with Southern Oregon. You're returning a good amount as well. You know, you're returning Ciara Bird. She was an all-conference member. Again, 40.5% from the 3-point line on 3 per game. 2nd in makes on the team. This Lewis and Clark team as a whole, another team, middle of the pack when it comes to 3-point percentage. 6th in the conference. You're going to see a constant theme, and we're going to continue to harp on it because we feel like that is what this Cascade Conference is going to come down to. Who can hit shots consistently and, again, get the right shots. Just because you're shooting up a bunch of threes in the game does not mean you're going to be a great 3-point shooting team. But if you're shooting the right ones, you're getting the one-mores, you're collapsing the defense on kickouts. I'm very excited to see what they can do. Now, other players that I think are going to get, and I know you're going to talk about, a Darian, a Herring, and a Tatum Bragger probably. You're losing Ellie Sanders, an all-conference member, and Matiah Green, 7 and 6 a night, very consistent for her. I'm more so looking at 2 X factors specifically for Lewis and Clark. I'm looking at Peyton Himes, 9 points per game, 9.5 points per game, 4 assists, 33.3% from the 3-point line, and then Kendall Wallace, 4 points, 28.8% from the 3-point line. I'm looking at them because the 3-point percentage, especially for Kendall, while the scoring isn't there, it's giving more confidence, attempts. I think as she get another year under her belt, she'll probably be able to get at least 6 or 7 points per game. That's an extra couple points that you're maybe not counted for from last year. And then for Peyton, I think she can cross that 10 points. I think she should get a double-figure scoring, and now you add that into a Bird and like you're talking about Darian and Tatum. I like what this team might have, and they're a true contender in my book. I'm just curious on what the players that are going to need to step up with some of the players they're losing are going to be able to do come this season.
Definitely. And the biggest thing, and this is something that I definitely believe on for every team, is from maybe the top, I want to say like 4, 5 teams when it comes to the Cascade Conference, they all have the opportunity to be first. The only thing is, and we've said this before, it's just who can come out on top the most efficiently when it comes to the 3-point attempt and their percentages, as well as the amount that they allow per game. They can't allow for them to have a percentage higher than them when it comes to being average. And I know, pretty sure Oregon Tech is one of those teams that they allow more than they can produce. And with that, that's a very big factor. That's basically a good 60% of what makes them contenders or, breaking right.
And to just harp on it more, 31.8 is what Lewis and Clark shot, Above them, 32, 32, 32 for College of Idaho, Eastern Oregon, and Monmouth. They were separated by literally a decimal point, like 0.4 of a difference. So that's why we're talking about this going to be the constant theme of, is this a make or miss conference? Because of that, because of the fact that you're deciding, like, you're splitting hairs here. You really, really are. But I will say what Lewis and Clark does very well, they force turnovers. Their opponents were averaging almost 20.7 turnovers per game. They were putting up 12 steals a night. Like 22 points off of those turnovers, that's an additional part to your offense where if you're not going to be, because again, 31% from the three-point line is good. I'm not sitting here saying that they need to shoot 38 like Southern Oregon. Like, that's not what I'm saying here. If anything, a couple points up, cool. It's more so about the other things. Can they have enough of a continuity from the offensive side of things to continue to go? And I'm also looking at a big, possible who takes Ellie's role. Again, Ellie Sanders last year, 13.6, 4.3 rebounds, all-conference member. Like, you can go on, and players, probably a lot of coaches out there in the Cascade who are happy that she's possibly not going to be there again. Obviously, we're not going to sit here and say that for sure. But who's going to step in that role? And can they do it by committee, or is going to be certain people going to be more consistent in there? It's just a matter of, can we get on a good shooting night? Can we have the right people hit the right shots at the right time to be able to try and get something out of this season coming up? Fourth seed, Eastern Oregon. Now, Eastern Oregon's a little interesting. And after this one, we'll talk about some of these other teams a little differently. Eastern Oregon, arguably the best return. I haven't picked a team, and I was trying to, but I couldn't decide what teams I really liked having in terms of better return this coming year. Because again, Eastern Oregon, they're up there. Oregon Tech, we mentioned, they're up there. Lewis and Clark, they're up there as well. Eastern Oregon, you're returning Kelsey Sangner, 15 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 2 assists, a steal on the block, all-conference member. Maggie Smith, 7 points per game, 33% from the three-point line, third most in makes on the team last year. Kia Walawu, 6 points per game. And then Haley Johnson and Maya Alvarado, freshmen, by the way, who averaged 11, combined averaged by 11 points per game. That's a really good returning group. It's a really good returning group, and it makes me very interested in the biggest thing for me for them, offensive leap. You're putting up 69.4 points per game. I know for a fact they feel like they can do better. I know that they can cross 70. They probably want to cross 70. I think that should be their goal. If they can get over 70 next season, I think that comfortably puts them in that contender spot. And obviously, when we get to our tiers, I'll kind of talk a little bit about it. That is my biggest question for this Eastern Oregon team. Can they have that next leap to be a better offensive team? Because defense is good. 59.8 points per game allowed. I'm good with that. If you drop that a little bit more, great. But I'm not sitting here thinking that it's the defense. I think that their offense needs to improve a little bit more. And look at the turnovers too. 14.7 turnovers per game.
Exactly. That's the one thing I was going to mention. That's a very hefty amount of turnovers, especially with them losing an all-conference member in Bree Holacek. They definitely have to be able to control the ball a lot more, as well as harp on who they already have, develop those freshmen with Johnson and Alvarado, bring them to maybe they can have like a 20-point average where it's 10 and 10, 11 and 9. Just help them step into their roles and get a little more comfortable going into the season, as well as developing everybody else that they do have. Maggie Smith can definitely maybe jump up to maybe like a 11 and 12. I definitely see that potential, as well as continuing to kind of be one of the ringleaders when it comes to shooting the three ball correctly.
And a player that I kind of want to circle back on is Kelsey, because I do think she could have a big year next year, a possible player of the year type of year. She most on the team in field goal attempts and makes. Again, she was the primary option on offense. We knew she was getting touches every night. She's a player that if I'm a coach and I'm coaching against her, you're not going to stop her. You're just trying to contain her. Get her under her averages, make her shoot inefficient from the field. That's what you're trying to do. And then 3-point percentage, again, she was the most in 3-point field goals at 56 and second most in makes. She was putting up almost about 5 a game in attempts. To be second in the team at shooting about 36.6% from the 3-point line, I think she's primed for a big year. And again, the spearhead of an offense that last year ranked 4th in the conference at 69.4. The 3 teams above them were the 3 teams above them in the conference in the standings that all scored above 70 points. So I do think that is going to be the cutoff. If you can get to 70, I think you have a legit case of being a contender in the Cascade, because if you're top 4, your defense is solid. I know that for a fact. And that brings us to College of Idaho. College of Idaho team is a little intriguing for me. I have them, the first thing on my notes, it says leap inbound. Like, this team could very well jump into that top 4. Because I do think the top 4 are the 4 for a reason. You know, I'm sure once you and I get to the tiers, we'll kind of have the contenders up there kind of be the same, maybe splitting hairs. But we're obviously going to have, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. We'll have 3 contenders for that tier. I think we're going to have probably the same 3, or at least the same group of 4, you know, looking at it. College of Idaho, I think, is a team that could be on the outside looking in, but very, very close to breaking that glass ceiling, so to speak, and being in there. I'm big on them for the continuity. They're returning 12 players. 12 players coming back next year is a lot. And in college, I so very much believe, and I've talked about it with some of our coaches' interviews in the past 2 episodes here, you cannot put a price or a number on how important continuity is, especially in this era with the transfer portal and team players leaving, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And I'm not even talking about 12. Like, 12, I think, is an amazing number to have. I'm saying if you're even having 8 to 7 players coming back, that's great. Like, that's perfect. That's awesome. That's about a rotation. But if you can get more than that, double digits more than that, you got to be taken seriously, because there's going to be certain aspects of the game that you're just going to have better than your opponents that are bringing in a whole new recruiting class, a whole new transfer class, whatever the case may be. So I do think because of College of Idaho's returning, I'm kind of big on them. Another team, though, you need some offense. You need some offense. And it's not by – there might be a little bit more than Eastern Oregon. I think maybe that gap is a little bit on offense, is a little bit bigger, because while Eastern Oregon's going 69.4, College of Idaho drops at 62.1. They're a bigger offensive needed team. I think they're going to need the offense, but I'm really big on the continuity that I think could help get a better offensive scoring consistency for them this coming season.
I can definitely agree. And one factor that a lot of people may not necessarily take into consideration is College of Idaho did play more games than Eastern Oregon when it did come to, you know, the grunt of it all. And in reality, I definitely can see that there is a world, a scenario where those two do flip, and the gap may be not as close as we definitely think it is. With them only losing Ashton Adamson, I definitely do see that they have the ability to continue to grow what they have and definitely expand on the powerhouse that they're beginning to grow. That way, by the time conferences come and the points are what matters here, they can see that they can hold their own with a Southern Oregon or an Oregon Tech. And that's what they need to be able to keep on moving forward. You did mention the offensive, you know, harping and definitely getting more consistent with that. And I definitely do agree. But they have a lot more potential than we definitely put on.
And this is why I'm big on their offense, because I do think their offense will take a leap. I'm looking at Brooke Bressford, 10 points per game last year, almost 11, 6 rebounds, almost 7 a game. Then you've got Anna Mooney at 9 points, Kylie Waltermer at 8 points, and then Mia Austin and Tyron Riley at 8 and 8 respectively. This team, I think, has a better chance of bumping up offensively than Eastern Oregon. And the reason I say that is because it's so much harder to get across 70 average-wise than it is to get up to 68, 67. Because there's such a, like, even in 69 to 70, that 1 point difference, it just looks different. Like, when you look on the stats and you look down and you say, okay, this team averages 69 points, this team averages 70, you legitimately are like, it feels a little differently. Because 70 points a night, the amount of games that these players play and what they got to go through on and off the court, to do that consistently is hard. I think College of Idaho is almost like a sleeping giant, so to speak, to go back to our old episodes here, offensively. I can see them getting another 7 points a night. Easily. I see it right here just from the 4 players that I met, or the 5 players that I mentioned. that right there can get you. I know they're going to be able to get, a Brooke can get maybe to 12 at night. I think Mia and Tyron can get closer to 10. You've got a player right there in Anna who's just under 10. Like, there's points to be had there. So I'm excited to see what offensive this College of Idaho team is going to do. Before we get into the second half of the conference, we'll go over to the questions here. And the second question, is Oregon Tech primed for a big season? I know we already talked about Oregon Tech, but the reason I wanted to do it like this is because when we look at these next few teams, there is a world where one of these teams makes a leap. And I think the next two teams we talk about could be those teams, Bushnell and Corbin. Bushnell, another team offensively, I think that's the biggest question for me. It's the biggest question for me. They put up 58 points per game last year, but when we look at the 3-point percentage, they're a team that is going to test the theory of, is the Cascade a make or miss conference? Because they were second in the conference last year in 3-point field goal percentage at 33.1. Now, 33.1 and 38.3 where Southern Oregon was, it's a big gap.
Big gap.
But the way Corbin plays with the 3-point shooting, I think that's going to be a team to watch out for. You're returning 6 players. You've got Aiden Kerpink, who put up 11.9 last year. Ellis Masto, who put up 9. You are losing a Libby Mathis, 13 points a game and 9 rebounds to go along with a block, an all-conference member.
Almost a double-double.
Like, that's going to be a big hit to your offense, considering that that's where my question at least is. Just like I talked about with the College of Idaho team, I do think it's possible for them to get over 60 and get into that into that tier. I think Bushnell's goal should be, let's host a conference tournament. Excuse me, Corbin's goal should be let's host a conference tournament. I think when you look at a situation for Bushnell, though, they're gonna be a little bit harder to come across. I'm curious to see what your take on it is, because I do have a player here, and I'm kind of curious to see if you have that player too when it comes to X factors. Because you're losing Libby and the offense is already a question, I'm kind of hesitant to see how much of a leap they can have. But they should be able to host an opening round if I'm Bushnell. They should be able to host an opening round in the conference tournament.
You kind of figured out where I was going with it. I think with losing Libby Mathis, you're losing 14 points, 10 boards, and almost 2 blocks. I definitely do have that question as to how they'll be able to make that up, whether it's offensively and defensively. With them already having almost 60 per game, but they're allowing almost 66, it does run through my mind whether it's a factor of they're going to produce less and allow more, and how they're filling that gap with already having a very high turnover rate with almost 17 and allowing almost 9 to 10 steals per game. So that does take into account how they'll be able to bridge that gap. They have the potential for it. I am just a little hesitant as well as to who's going to be able to step in and make that happen.
And a perfect segue into more depth on Corbin. We mentioned Corbin being the number 2 team in the conference with 3-point shooting. Bushnell was 27.3 last year. You're going to need to have a more consistent 3-point threat. The closer you are to 30, the better. That's really what it comes down to in the Cascade. 30 is like the cutoff. If you're not shooting 30% almost nightly, it's going to be a rough night offensively trying to get these buckets. And then part of the reason, too, when we talk about turnovers with these teams that we're going to get into in the bottom end of the conference, if you're turning the ball over, live ball turnovers, you're running a transition. Nowadays, coaches are telling their players, don't run the 3-point line, run to the corner. Run to the corner, let's go get an open 3, let's get a quick one, let's try and get that ball up as quickly as we can. So the more turnovers you have, in the past, you probably think 10 turnovers is 20 points. Now 10 turnovers would be 30 points. There's an extra 10 points being had right there just off of your turnovers. So keeping your turnovers down is going to be very, very important. But like I mentioned with Corbin, another sneaky team, because of what they're returning, because they're the second best in 3-point shooting. Just what I talked about with turnovers, though. 18 a night. And 9 of those are steals to the other team. So if you're putting up almost 10 steals a night in the Cascade, you can't assume they're all going to be layups, free throws. There's going to be a good amount of threes in there, and that's going to lead to what's going to feel more than it maybe it is in those turnover department. So I'm very curious on Corbin if they can take care of the ball a little bit more, do everything else the same, shoot the ball the same. The defense could always go up. You can always get better on defense. But if you can keep the turnovers down, even 15, those 3 possessions could be the difference in a close game in the end of the season when you're trying to fight for playoff spots and trying to keep your season alive. Even you're returning Lizzie Bennett, Jenna Arblack, and Tori Yachner, 9, 8, and 5 scoring respectively. I think they could have an all-conference player, to be honest with you. They didn't have one last year, according to the notes, but they could. If they get top 5 or even 5th or 6th seed, I think they get at least one player. Who that is, you're obviously inclined to go Lizzie because she was the leading scorer last year, but the other 2, Jenna and Tori, they're right behind her. It's a very collective group with that big 3, so to speak. So I'm very excited to see what they do. They are losing Alyssa Wiley and Madison Hutnett, 9 points and 7 points per game respectively. Alyssa was also first in attempts and makes last year for the 3-point shooting at 34%. They are a team not to overlook because of their shooting, because of the way they play, and because of the fact that they're bringing in a decent amount of returners. They are 1 or 2 players away from they're 1 or 2 players that take that leap away from being a serious threat of like, you can't just take Corbin as a, gonna get in the playoffs, maybe shake up a little bit, but that's it. Now, this Corbin team, if they get those turnovers down, they could be a real contender and a real playoff upsetter, I think, when that time comes.
Definitely. I like Tori Yonker to definitely be the all-conference, especially if she carries the second most attempts and makes within this Corbin team. Only thing she needs is efficiency. She gets those shots more efficient. She shoots more. She's already up there pushing 11, 12, 13 even, and helping carry that Corbin team. One thing that you did mention, and I'll mention this for Corbin as well as another team, which I forgot to mention it for, their turnovers, they hurt. They make a difference as well. As much as the 3-point shooting is make or break, their turnovers and how they produce off of those definitely do play a factor into it. Both Corbin and I saw this with Lewis Clark as well. They have a lot of turnovers. They allow a lot of them, but they aren't necessarily being able to produce off of them. Clark, as they definitely produce a lot of opponents' turnovers, for them to have almost 21 opponent turnovers and only have 22 points off of them, that's something that does scare me, because what are they doing with those possessions? How are they being able to gain so much defensively but not, profit off of it? And that's something that a lot of these teams are going to have to pay attention to when it comes to just how their defensive factor does play a part into their success.
We're going to cut it here before we continue to the last question, which is one of our patented ones: who makes the playoffs, who missed the playoffs. Obviously, there's still one team left technically that made the postseason last year in the Evergreen. But before we do that, I'll re-ask it so we can give a more direct answer. Oregon Tech, do you have them primed for a big season, or are you looking at another team out of not just the 7 that we mentioned, but maybe one of the ones that we haven't mentioned yet, as a team that could not necessarily win the Cascade right now, we'll get to that later, but be a team that really surprises us and does more than we expect them to do, or win some games that we didn't think they could win?
I have to hydrate for this one just because it's going to be so 50-50. But do I think that Oregon Tech has the materials, the capability of reaching that top slot as well as winning the conference and possibly the tournament? Yes. Do I think it's going to be as easy as it was last year? No. Do I think that it's just going to fall the way that it's supposed to? No. I think for a situation for Oregon Tech to reach that point, everything has to fall the right way. It would have to be a situation where Southern Oregon takes a bit of a hit as far as what they lost and not being able to harp on the stats that need improvement. Lewis Clark to continue to not efficiently have that turnover to offensive break success, and for College of Idaho, Bushnell and Corbin to also just take a hit when it comes to what they need to improve for Oregon Tech to still be in that conversation. If all the other teams do step up, I do definitely see Oregon Tech being a game for game situation as far as how they shoot, how they produce in any given night.
I'm going to take that ending and then go on the other side. Game per game, I think that's going to probably describe the entire Cascade because you have enough teams that were at the top that are losing or have at least one. There's no team that we talked about so far that is perfect. No team.
Of course.
No team. Whether it's what you're losing, what you need to improve on internally, or you're integrating in the Oregon Tech's case. But, and a note that I say for this part of the question, Oregon Tech's roster breakdown this year is going to go as followed. 4 freshmen, 3 sophomores, 5 juniors, and 3 seniors. I think you have just such a balanced aspect in your roster. I'm going to keep harping on you getting Olivia and Gabby back. I truly believe while it is going to be a night-by-night basis in the Cascade, a game-to-game basis, I think Oregon Tech, because of what Southern Oregon lost, because of the team behind them kind of needing to really push themselves to get to that next level, I think Oregon Tech has to be the team that teams are chasing. Granted, I know that means, you're chasing a team that didn't win last year. You're chasing a team that didn't go as far as Southern Oregon did. But that was last year. While I do think Southern Oregon is not going to relinquish the title willingly, it's not, like you said, it's not going to be an easy night. Neither one of us believes that any team in this Cascade Conference, even Southern Oregon last year who went perfect, I promise you all the players and all the coaches are going to say the same thing. It was not easy. It may have ended with a perfect number in the conference record department, but it was not easy. So even if Oregon Tech goes 22-0 like Southern Oregon did last year, I guarantee you it's not going to be with them scoring and just blowing teams out of the water, because that's not how it works. We look at the scoring margin for Southern Oregon. Again, this is obviously taking the entire season, not just a conference specific. While Southern Oregon was plus 23 in these games, Lewis and Clark was 18. Southern Oregon was 12. So when we're looking at the entire season, Southern Oregon was one of the best teams in the country, obviously. But Lewis and Clark and Oregon Tech, they were very good as well. And we're talking now about splitting hairs. Is it going to be hard for Oregon Tech to take that next leap? Absolutely. I talked about it with scoring. That 1 point is hard to get. Like, you got to get it consistently every single night. You mentioned you're going to have an off night. You're going to have a night where the other team just can't miss. You're going to have a night where the referees just aren't giving you the calls that maybe you feel like you should be getting, or vice versa. You're getting calls and you're just not able to whatever the case may be. That 1 point is going to be hard to do. But I do think Oregon Tech, for me at least, is going to be the bar for me today, July 30th, when we're recording this episode. Could it change when we talk about conferences in the spring? Maybe.
Probably.
Maybe. But I think continuity, you're gaining back an All-American, you're gaining back an All-Conference player. Like, you did that without them. It's going to take some growing pains, but I don't think the growing pains are going to be the level of what some teams going to go through with freshmen and transfers, all that kind of stuff. Which brings us to the last question here for this Cascade Conference preview. What team makes the postseason and what team misses the postseason? Again, as you guys know, we are big on, you can't just say this team's going to make it and not bring somebody out. To give the people at home a quick recap of what they did last year when it came to the standings: Southern Oregon, Oregon Tech, Lewis and Clark, Eastern Oregon, College of Idaho, Bushnell, and Corbin, we all talked about. Evergreen is the last team that made the postseason that we haven't talked about. And then you've got those last 4 that missed out on the postseason last year at the bottom of the conference. Evergreen, obviously a team that is in danger of missing the postseason. They just made it in as the last seed. I think I know, and we kind of have an idea of where we're going with this. You're returning 4 players from last season. 4 players. You are losing 10 seniors. I don't think the phrase recruiting class is key has ever been more important or more just emphasized than for this team. Numbers aside, like honestly, we don't even need to talk about the numbers. It just comes down to that. Who are you going to be able to bring in from transfers, from freshmen, to try and compete in this Cascade Conference? It's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. On the flip side, because of that, you could find lightning in a bottle. But you're risking a lot. I just feel like you can talk about the numbers and you can talk about, Jalen, who was a co-defensive player of the year, Sydney Van Ness. Like, you can talk all about it. For me, I'm starting and finishing with, I got to see this recruiting class. I got to see this recruiting class, and I just got to see what they're all about to play in one of the best conferences in the NAIA.
And that's all it is, genuinely. I don't think there's anything to really harp on. This Evergreen team has just as much to lose as they have to gain, with them having to focus this summer primarily on figuring out who is staying, developing them to help 10 plus people come in and fill in the gaps, and make sure that by the start of the season, come October, November, that they're cohesive enough to be able to put up a fight. That should be their primary focus, if not their only focus this season.
No, and that's what it comes down to. And again, it's nothing against Evergreen, and we're rooting for them, obviously. I think I said it in the other episodes that we've had so far with the conference previews. Granted, it's only been one. The scariest teams for me, and the teams that I love being on, I hated playing against, are the teams with nothing to lose. Evergreen has nothing to lose. Like, I guarantee you, everybody I'm not going to speak for everybody in the conference, but it's a fair assumption to make if you're in the Cascade as a coach or as a player. You look at Evergreen, you're like, they lost everybody. Like, you can't change at such a rate like that and be able to not only win right away, but make the playoffs again. Granted, it's 8 teams, all that kind of, but it's going to be hard because these next teams that we're going to talk about is going to be, but because they are the team with nothing to lose, but everything to gain, you cannot overlook that mental side of it, to where they're going to fight because they got nothing else to do. They're going to fight every single night. Nice. And if they do somehow make the postseason again next year, or they come out the gates firing when non-conference starts on opening day on October 23rd, I would not be totally surprised. I would be surprised, and you and I are here on the record saying that we don't think it's going to be that easy and it's going to be something that we got to monitor a little bit. But we also have been around basketball and sports long enough to know there's a level of emotion, mental, that you just can't account for. And we'll say we were wrong if that day does come. And we both hope it does come, because we would love to see another run like that, because that'd be great for everybody. It'd be so much fun to watch.
Exactly. We love seeing that kind of stuff happen. Just looking into what they were able to produce just this last season, they did put up a fight with a lot of these teams. They gave College of Idaho one of their losses, and College of Idaho is easily in the upper half of the conference.
And I mean, Evergreen was middle of the pack in defense, allowing 65.6 points per game. Their offense, again, could have been a little bit better at 57. That's going to be a big thing. But the defense, you know me, I'm a big defense. So if your defense is there, you just got to be able to be more selective, be more controlled, and be more comfortable on offense. And when you have a defense like that, I feel like that's going to just kind of, let your defense feed your offense, so to speak. So there's where Evergreen can make this work. Northwest. Watch out. Watch out for this Northwest team. Northwest, you're returning Kimberly Carrada Sanchez, 13, 36 from the field, 37 from the three-point line. Kayla Medeiros, 13 points per game. 2 freshmen. They were freshmen last year now. This freshman duo I'm looking at here. I'm looking at this freshman duo. I'm looking at freshman duo, and
potential.
I think we both, without saying it, are picking Evergreen as one of the teams to miss the postseason next year today. I'm going with Northwest to replace them. They're my initial team. I do have another one, but they're my initial team to get into the postseason next year, mainly because of that freshman duo. Kimberly and Clea, I like them. That's just over 26 points per game on a consistent basis. You give them a year under their belt. They clearly were ready for the college level. Now they get a full offseason at the college level. You get a full season under your belt to understand what to do, what not to do, all that kind of stuff. I'm very, very excited for what this freshman duo can do next year for Northwest. Now, the scoring is fine. 60 points per game. I say fine in the sense of like the starting point. You can get up to 65. Your defense got to be another number now. 75.8 of offensive opponents' points per game. That's too much. But when you're having two freshmen that are playing consistently and you have a team like that, I'm not surprised at it. But that's going to be the key for me. It's a little bit harder to do. I think it's easier to improve your offense than it is your defense, because defense isn't everything. It's a lot of just chemistry and knowing where each other's supposed to be and going through these scrambles and rotations over and over and over again till it's not that you can't get it wrong. You can't not get it right. Like, that's the type of level you have to be a really good defense. If they can do that, I think that they're going to be a really good team. And the biggest thing for their defense, and before I pass it over to you, their offensive rebounds for opponents, it's too high. 12.8, almost 13, and then you're also giving 19 turnovers a game. Those two stats, if they come down, get that offensive number for the other team's rebounds, get it under 10. Just get two less. And that turnover's got to come down to at least 15, and that's being generous. I think it's got to come down to 14, 13. If you do that, they make the postseason, and I think they made it pretty comfortably. Not just the AC, but I think they make it pretty comfortably.
I think if we're just looking at stats, you increase the 3-point percentage. This is a make or miss kind of league here, and you increase on your ability to handle the rock and crash the boards consistently. They go from 9 to pretty comfortable 7 or 6, and that's just not even taking into account the arsenal that they have with their freshman development and the potential recruiting class that come with them. With that, it really does take a lot into what exactly is Northwest team has to fight for and how they plan to lay out what they have day by day. Because with who they're returning with Corrado Sanchez, Medeiros, and Ellie DeWaard, that's already half of what you produce as a team. Keep in mind, you still have another 5 or 6 you can possibly rely on to give consistent numbers, as well as whoever you do try to bring in. It's scary to see how far this Northwest team can go, and they definitely have everything that they need to do. They just need to fine-tune some of the things that they have going on.
I think a good way to put a bow on them, while we're both saying that they're probably going to make the postseason next year, I think they're safe to say that they could also be that team that's a year away from being a year away because of the freshmen that they have, and like you said, the transfers, another year of development. Yeah, maybe not next year, but then the year after that, y'all better watch out for that Northwest team because they could be legit. Which leads us to Monmouth. For those who don't know, Monmouth is officially not going to be a part of not only the Cascade, but they do not have an athletic department anymore as of last year. Obviously, they weren't the only team, or the only school, I should say, that I'm going to say team. I'm going to say athletic department because I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to give out any false information about the school per se, but I do know they were not the only athletic department that had to shut down last year, and we always hate when that happens because, one thing about the NAIA, and you can attest to this, we look out for our own. We always support each other, whether it's in platforms like this, whether it's coaches, players, whatever it is. So, we never want to see that happen, but obviously they will not be in the conference anymore. No team has been added as far as the date of this recording that we could find. There was no team that was added to put the Cascade up to 12 again, so it is going to be at 11 teams next year. For them, the only thing I'm going to say is obviously it was not the year that they did not the end of the year they wanted to have. They would have definitely had a better run and trying to keep a lasting legacy for the conference, but a great program, I do believe the school might have closed down as well, but if it didn't, I'm glad the school's still around. But if it did, a great institution. One of the schools actually that might have even won Gold Star, the 5 stars that the NAIA just put out when it comes to institutions and the best of the best. So they could have been, I think they might have been gold standard. But the thing for them is, and the world does move on and business goes on as usual, there's some possible transfers that are looking for new homes, and specifically
Exactly. Freshman of the year.
Freshman of the year, Jersey. That she was freshman of the year, all conference, 19 points a game. She's going to go somewhere. Maybe not in the Cascade, but she's going to find home somewhere, and they're going to be very, very happy with what they get from her. There's a lot of players there that are going to be impact players wherever they go. Michaela Torcono, 11 points a game. Gracie Browning, 11 points per game. Ellie Robinson, 10 points per game. There is a very, very good team in here somewhere in terms of transfers that are probably looking for new homes, probably already found new homes, could be in the Cascade still, could be in other places. If these teams go somewhere, we could definitely play anyway, we'll take a quick detour. We'll go with Jersey, Michaela, Gracie, and Ellie. If you could put those four separate, no pairing. If you could put them anywhere else in the Cascade specifically, where would you put them? Yeah, not knowing teams or anything like that. Just where, off the numbers and off of just feel, where would you love to put them?
If you put Jersey on that Northwest team,
I was literally thinking the same exact thing. Give me a 3-headed freshman duo. Come on now.
put Jersey in that Northwest team.
I like that.
To like top 5, top 4.
I like that. For people that don't know, and which pretty much everybody, because we've never said this, Lex is a Thunder fan, so he's putting on the Sam Presti hat right now, and he's trying to draft for the future, and he just did that. That would be a nasty trio. I'm so here for that. For Michaela, I'm looking at the 3-point percentage. I'm looking at she was first in the team in attempts and makes, almost 12 points a game. I'm looking at a team over in Lewis and Clark who could use another double-digit score on a consistent basis, another 3-point threat. I think you could have something there. I would like to see Michaela possibly going to Southern Oregon. Lewis and Clark State. That'd be a great pickup for them. Where do you got Gracie going?
I like Michaela actually. Oregon Tech. If
Oregon Tech?
Michaela,
I like it.
That 3-point gap that they have that places them from that 1 and that 2 spot. That's what they need to be able to push them over Southern Oregon for sure. Gracie,
11-7. 11-7 with 3 assists, almost 4.
A defensive needing group, which I want to say Lewis Clark.
You want Lewis and Clark? Okay.
They definitely need that defensive runner that definitely can help harp them as far as their consistency as what they do, as far as what the damage they do to their opponents as far as defense. And adding in someone like that can definitely help them jump from 21 opponent turnovers to 25, 26. And with that, also produce that point off of turnovers from 22 to possibly 30, possibly 35.
I like Gracie with the rebounding specifically. I know we just mentioned Northwest. If they can't get Jersey, I would love to see her at Northwest just on a rebounding thing that we talked about. Being able to finish defensive possessions with the rebounds is very, very important. So I think 7.8, almost 8 rebounds a game, be a great pickup for them. Last one, Allie Robinson, 10 points per game, almost 4 rebounds a night. Give me College of Idaho. Another 10-point per game scorer would fit in that offense beautifully just off of the numbers, the balance scoring that they have. I like Ellie possibly could be a great pickup for College of Idaho.
And I'm going to go against everything you just said and combine them all, take those 5, 6 people, send them over to Evergreen. They're causing damage.
That'd be fire. That'd be great. But that's the end of our fantasy make-believe draft here. But in all seriousness, again, we really are sad to hear of the closing for the athletic department of Monmouth, and we hope that the coaches, the players, everybody a part of that department is able to find a new place, hopefully still in the NAIA. We would love them to stay and hopefully somewhere close to home, and to opportunity that they look at it as that. Obviously one door closes, another one opens, and I'm hoping that they all have that same mindset of what's next and excited for the adventures to come in their lives. Brings us to the last 2 teams in the conference. Walla Walla, Great name, by the way. I love that name. I've loved saying it every single time that I've had to do it. I'm sorry, I had to say it. I know we were both thinking it, but I love the name. Walla Walla, who they're returning a nice amount, and they're actually my other team to make the postseason next year. I'll tell you who that team coming out is in a minute here. But for Walla Walla, J-Lo Bello, 12 points per game, 34.5 3-point field goal percentage, first in attempts, first in makes. I think she could have a nice season. Maybe not great, like not a big leap scoring. Could get me in that 13, 14 a night. But I'm also looking at Natalie Trevino, 11 points per game, 1.5 steals per game. I like her. I think she could be the one to make that offensive leap of getting another point a game, another 2 points a game, getting to 13, getting to 12, and really helping J-Lo on the offensive side of things. And you also have Maria Lopez, 7 points per game, 44.1 3-point field goal percentage. Biggest thing with this one, and again, don't know why, could be any number of reasons, strictly in a vacuum. She only played 13 games. All of them came in the second half of the season, though. So it's, and again, a lot of things that have happened. I'm going with the story of, and I mean story in the sense of what I'm going to say, my truth. Couldn't play in the first part of the season for whatever reason. Came in second season, hit the ground running. Hit the ground running. If in 13 games you put up 7 points a game and you're shooting 44% from the 3-point line, that means if you're 13 games, you're getting above 10 and you're shooting at least 35% from the 3-point line, maybe even a little bit higher. I think that they have enough offensively there to be able to do something, really legit. They could just sneak into the postseason. I think they sneak into the postseason, and a team that I have coming out, unfortunately, I'm going Bushnell. I think the 3-point shooting, 27.3% from the 3-point line, it's a tough hit. Your offense is at 58.8. I think while you're returning a good amount, you're also losing a lot in Libby Mathis. So for me, my two teams going into the postseason next year, Northwest and Walla Walla, and my teams coming out are going to be Evergreen and Bushnell. What is your take on Walla Walla and what they could be doing next year for what I could consider a bounce back season almost?
Definitely see the bounce back season with Lopez having more of a expanded amount of playing time coming into the season. Hopefully there isn't another repeat of having to miss a half of a season. One factor that we do have to touch on is they are losing Chariah Daniels, which is an easy double-double with almost 13 and 10 with almost 3 steals as well. That defensive factor is definitely something that they can't take, too lightly, because they have to be able to come up with that. That's not something that is just going to be able to be there on the flip of a switch. They already allow almost 33% from the 3, which is, as we know, on the higher end as far as what teams produce. And with that, losing that factor, that can jump from 33 to 39 very easily. So it's a matter of how they can harp on that and how they can really fix that gap and find a piece to their puzzle to where that won't have to happen. But they definitely do have the potential, and I will agree with your them sneaking into the playoffs. That definitely is something that is more than likely a reality.
And the last thing I'll mention before we go on to Warner Pacific, the rebounding. 39.4 for your opponents. Rebound total, not offensive, but rebound total. You're only grabbing 32. And that was with Daniels, who put up 10 a night by herself.
Precisely.
There needs to be, whether a player or a collective unit of just gang rebounding, all 5 crash to glass. Let's secure the rebound, and then we'll go out and run and try and get out and transition or push or whatever the case may be for their style. But you got to get the rebound. 7 rebound difference, a -7 rebound difference with one of the best rebounders in the conference. We got to do better than that as a team. I think they will. I'm excited for them, and I do believe that they will be able to. Maybe they don't go positive, but at least we shrink the negative a little bit. Shrink it a little bit, make it more manageable. Because I'm a believer. When it comes to rebounds, it's important. But if you're an undersized team, which I'm not saying that they are, but let's say that they were, if I'm looking at it, I'm like, listen, we don't have to be a great rebounding team. Just don't be that bad. Instead of a -7, give me -2, -3 even. Because at the end of the day, if we're small, that means we're better in other areas. If they're bigger than us, they're not as fast as us. So while we can't get every rebound, let's get enough to where we can run out. Let's make sure we force turnovers. Like, there's going to be different ways you can combat a bad rebounding team. Some teams are just bad rebounding team that happens. But we got to be able to negative anything with -5 and up or down, however you want to do it. I'm not a math major. Is bad. If we can go to -4, -3, -2, we can live with that. We can work with that. We'll be fine. But -7, we got to be able to fix that a little bit. Last team, Warner Pacific. I think it's just going to be a tough year for them. I do believe that. You know, you're defending the 3-ball. Again, one of the worst in the conference at 33.2% for opponents' 3-point percentage. You're putting 18 turnovers a night, 19 opponent turnovers a night, which is points off turnovers, I should say, which isn't horrible because they send that's a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not bad, but the turnovers are just really high, and you're giving teams extra efforts. You're returning Skylar Grossbeck and then Alex Sanders, 6 and 8 respectively. It's going to be tough because you're losing Emily Fortin at 11 points per game. You're losing Amaya Sales and McKinley Talkin at 9 and 8. I just don't see a lot of possibility here. We never are going to discredit any team that we preview because any team on any can have one just crazy season. And we understand that. Exactly. But again, going off the numbers, I think it's going to be a tough season for Warner Pacific. Sometimes those are the teams, though, that you overlook, and they're the ones that come back and hurt you at the end of the year. But do you have any takes on Warner Pacific before we get into our tiers here?
You kind of hit it. They definitely have, and I mentioned this earlier in the episode as well, that this conference can literally go either way. Like, I wouldn't be completely shocked if you would have told me in March that the standings flipped completely, because it's a make or miss kind of situation, and this recruiting class is definitely something that can definitely be a factor in that. But I definitely agree that Warner Pacific is definitely going to take a just rebuilding year, figure out who they lost, how they can fill in those gaps, recruit as best as they can, and definitely try to harp on some of the stats that they definitely need to improve with turnovers and their 3-point shooting as well.
At the end of the day, all it takes is one recruiting class. One good recruiting class, you turn some heads, you get some kids interested, and bada bing, bada boom, we're back into the racing. But that is going to be our final question officially for this preview. So we'll go into our tiers list. Again, for those of you that are new, we do 4 tiers. We do contenders, playoff contenders, meaning teams that we feel can win the conference regular season and or conference tournament. Then we got playoff locks, teams we know will be in the playoffs, no question about it. Then we have at the door, teams that we feel are just on the edge. They could make it, they could miss it, they could miss it by a game and a half, whatever the case may be. But those teams are just knocking at the door to get into the postseason. And then we have our break right teams that we feel for them to do that and get in the postseason even, everything kind of has to break their favor and go in their favor throughout the season. You have your list, I have my list. We will start with the bottom going up as we always do. I think it's safe to say we'll start with Warner Pacific being a break right team. We just talked about it. I don't think we need to get into it. What we have started to do is we have a specific number per tier. So the numbers are 2, 3, 3, and 3. Who is your second team that you have being a break right team for the coming season in 2025, 2026 in the Cascade?
Evergreen.
Evergreen is also in mine as well. I think we've talked about it. They're just losing so much. It's kind of hard for us not to put them there just off of logic. Those are the 2 teams that we feel are going to be break right teams. Now, this, I think we're going to get interesting here. At the door, my first at the door team is going to be Bushnell. Do you have it differently in your? Is Bushnell at all in your at the doors?
They are.
They are.
But it's very slim.
Very slim.
But they are.
Okay. The other 2 teams I have in my at the door, Walla Walla and Northwest. But Northwest is really close to being playoff locks, if I'm being honest with you.
And this is where you lost me.
Why?
I definitely think Northwest has the ability to have a very great season, and they're locking themselves in the playoffs.
So you're going playoff lock. So that means so there's our first kind of a difference. Now I will say this, and I feel like this is the team that you probably switched it out for. Is that team Corbin
Mm-hmm.
I literally have it here. They could switch. Corbin. I have more. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to switch them because I was literally just about to say I actually think I have more faith in Northwest taking that lead because they're so young. And Corbin's shooting that could be tough. Yeah, you got me. I'm gonna go Corbin in my at the doors, and Northwest will be a playoff lock next year. You convinced me. I think I see where your head is at with that.
I'm glad because I'm usually right. I have a historical way of being accurate.
Man,
you can attest for this. 5 years ago, I did.
Man's predicts an NBA champion 5 years ago, and now can't let me hear the end of it. All right, it's fine. So yes, Northwest will be up. So for people at home, so far we're pretty much hit the nail. I think we're all identical. Evergreen and Warner Pacific are for us break right teams. Walla Walla, Bushnell, and now Corbin will be teams that are at the door that could make the postseason. So that means Northwest, as we agreed, there's 2 spots left in playoff locks and 3 spots still on our contenders list. I think we should skip over to contenders. I think we'll make things a little bit more interesting. A contender that I think we both have.
Southern Oregon.
Oregon Tech. There's hesitation there. So you don't have Oregon. You have Oregon Tech in your playoff locks, don't you?
Honestly, the last 5,
Oh no, the last 5 we could flip a coin if you want to do this. So okay, all right. So right now, what is on your paper that says Oregon Tech? What is next to their name? Playoff lock or contender?
Oregon Tech is on paper they're contenders, but Oregon Tech is probably the biggest team that can really go either way right now.
And I understand that. I can understand that because of obviously what you're getting back, and I completely agree that they could go the other way. Their cone of unknown is massive. It's very massive, and they rarely. I could see that. Lewis and Clark, where do you have them?
Playoff lock.
They're my third contender. I really believe this Lewis and Clark team. Again, going off just the notes, I feel like they're true contenders. Not just contenders, but I think they are legit true contenders. I think the X factors are going to hit. I think Peyton and Kendall are going to be more consistent offensive sources for them. I do believe Bird is going to jump into Ellie's role that she's leaving with 13 points a game. I think Bird slots in right there. You're already putting up 10.5. I give you 13 right there. So I think they are a true contender. The turnovers got to come down. Don't get me wrong. But everything else checks off. I think they are legit.
I personally, I was all in on it until the fact that really stuck with me and will forever stay in my mind is the fact that they have not been able to convert the best off of their opponent's turnovers. That just doesn't sit right with me. And not solely for that reason, but that is a potential when it comes to the stats of it all. I see them going at 5. I see everybody else shifting up and them stepping into the 5th slot.
And on that note, obviously for me at least, Eastern Oregon and College of Idaho are my last 2 playoff lock teams. I completely agree. I think when we look at the gaps, the gap between Southern Oregon, Oregon Tech, College of Idaho, Lewis and Clark, Eastern Oregon, yes, everybody, those 5 teams, we're splitting hairs. It's what you prefer. Yeah. So I do think those 5 teams are in my opinion, and I think you agree, they're in a tier of their own when it comes to the Cascade going into next year.
Definitely.
And specifically, Lewis and Clark and College of Idaho with Eastern Oregon in the middle, that can flip-flop any type of way.
Any day.
I'm going Eastern Oregon and College of Idaho as playoff locks because both of them need a leap offensively. And like I said before, I'm a believer that it's hard to make that leap when you're already a good team. College of Idaho, I think, has more room to leap because they were 62 points per game last year, so they have an easy 6-point runaway there. Eastern Oregon, it's hard to get over 70. I just really feel like it is because when you do, you've entered like elite offensive status, so it's very hard to do that on a consistent night. So that's the only reason I'm going with Eastern Oregon and College of Idaho being playoff locks. But the gap between them two and Northwest, which is our other playoff lock, is bigger. And like they're closer to being a contender than the other. But that means that you have Eastern Oregon and College of Idaho as your contenders, or just one of them?
I have Eastern Oregon as my contender.
What about Eastern Oregon makes you believe they're a contender?
Who they're bringing back? I definitely think they have the ability to harp on their star 4-5 realistically that I kind of want to that we pointed out, and they can enhance that to where Kelsey Singer is going to have basically a double-double next season for sure. I definitely see that happening, as well as being able to eventually step up, maybe get 2 blocks and steals. And we have Haley Johnson and Maya Alvarado, the freshman duo. I definitely see them reaching 20 as a unit, which definitely helps their offensive, spark. The only thing that they really need to fix, in which we talk about in a make or break league, is how they defend the 3-point, dropping that as much more as possible because they do it very well, and their turnovers. Those are the only 2 factors realistically that they need to really fix. If they do fix that, they can easily be 2 or 3.
And that leaves us with College of Idaho, which I think we kind of both agree on in the sense of the offense needs to definitely improve because while we both know that they are in that group with Southern Oregon and Eastern Oregon, everybody, when you look at the details, the offense just stands out. It just stands out really, really big when you've got the other 4 that are closer to 70. The other 4 are closer to 70 than you are, and you are closer to 60, and that's just too big of a gap. You got to shrink that a little bit 100%. to be able to be more consistent. And again, because of the returning class, I do think they're going to be able to do that and be able to close it out. So to recap, for me, my tier list for the Cascade for 2025-2026 as of today are way too early tier list. We'll do another one in the spring. My contenders are Southern Oregon, Oregon Tech, and Lewis and Clark. My playoff locks are Eastern Oregon, College of Idaho, and Northwest. My at the door are Bushnell, Walla Walla, and Corbin. And then my 2 break right teams are Evergreen and Warner Pacific. Lex, what are your tier list teams?
Break right were Warner Pacific and Evergreen. At the door were Corbin. We had the same thing as far as Corbin, Walla Walla, and Bushnell. Playoff locks, Northwest, Lewis and Clark, and College of Idaho. And then my contenders are Southern Oregon, Oregon Tech, and Eastern Oregon.
So there are go. We're on the record. People will know it. We're either in a couple months going to be like, wow, you were right, or you were completely wrong. And either way, we had fun with it. It's the summer. We're supposed to have fun with it. That's all we're trying to do with this. But that will do it for this conference preview of the Cascade Conference. If you're going to stick along with us, we're going to talk about the Mid-South here in a moment. Very excited to talk about them. I think they're going to be one of the best conferences in the NAIA, as they always are. If you are joining us for the first time, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you guys are following us on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, all that good stuff, and leave a comment. Let us know what you guys think, good, bad, whatever it is. We definitely want to hear from you guys. With that being said, pass it over to the 2 of us as we talk about the Mid-South. And we are back here now from our Cascade Conference preview to the Mid-South now. As you guys can see, our shirts did not change, so we were able to knock this all out in one sitting. Big reason for that is obviously the Mid-South, not that many teams to talk about, so we can be hopefully one of our quicker previews for the offseason. If you're just joining us and you didn't come from the Cascade or any of the other conference previews, first things first, housekeeping rules. If you know about this, you guys can skip ahead. When it comes to the information that we have on our notes, we're not going to stand by 100% just because not all the coaches responded to my Google form that I sent out at the beginning of the summer. Again, nothing against the coaches. Love the coaches. Love the support I've gotten from all these coaches for the platform. But I understand that they couldn't fill it out, and that's fine. Just know that not everything is going to be concrete. There is a good amount of it that is, though, and I will say that. For the numbers, we got that off of the Mid-South and team websites. So if something's not right, we got it off that website. That we checked both. It came out to be like that, and so that's what we're going to go off of. And yeah, I think that's everything when it comes to housekeeping rules. At this point, it feels pretty robotic, pretty consistent. We'll talk about the Mid-South. If you're just joining us, welcome. We appreciate you. If you're sticking with us from the Cascade, we appreciate you just as much as well. The Mid-South only has 7 teams. So I'm kind of interested to be able to deep dive into these teams. Obviously, only 7 teams. We can get into it. We just named this segment the previous part of the episode. So this, if you guys are just joining us, this is the official name of this segment that we will start with every conference preview. Darlex thoughts. Lex, what were your thoughts when you look at the Mid-South? And even though they don't have that many teams, arguably the best conference last year in the NAIA. What were your thoughts?
Definitely, for it to be so small and still have the arguable title of the best conference in the NAIA, it shows a big testament as to who they are, what these 7 teams can produce, and how they represent the Mid-South very well. I saw that it's similar to Cascades. It's definitely pretty much neck and neck, and it can really go either way. And I think going into this, you probably won't be as shocked as you think you'd be, but there's definitely a change in order that I'm gonna produce when we look into it.
I'm excited. I do think this is one of the conferences, and it's only part 2 of the conference previews that we've had. We're gonna have 10. It's gonna be a 10-part, obviously, journey, I guess if you want to say. This conference, though, up to this point, has had, or possibly has, the biggest possible turnover because of people and the teams losing some key elements, and then what we're going to get into in a minute here. But like we always do, we give you guys a quick recap. Last year's Mid-South Conference standings. Campbellsville, number 1. Cumberland's number 1. I know it says number 2, but they actually were co-regular season champions. Obviously, that conference record attests to that, 10-2 each of them in their regular seasons. Then Freed-Hardeman was 3rd, Georgetown was 4th, Bethel 5th, Lindsey Wilson 6th, and then Cumberland's of Tennessee was last in the conference. And you see there, 6 out of the 7 teams made the national tournament, which perfect segue into our recap. You see at the bottom corner, best conference last season, question mark. And the Mid-South had not only the most teams in the national tournament with 6, but of those 6, 5 of them made it to at least the Sweet 16, including Bethel, who made it all the way to the Fab 4. So this Mid-South definitely put on for the city last year. Like I mentioned at the top there, regular season champions were Campbellsville and Cumberland's of Tennessee, University of Cumberland's, the Patriots. Conference tournament champions, though, were the Bethel Wildcats. And if you guys haven't caught my interview with Coach Chris Nelson, I really recommend you guys go on and watch that one after this episode. Great talk with him. The first official episode of the Hoop Report. Just so much fun, and he's just a great person to be able to talk to and get to know. First team all conference members, you can see there, including your specialty award winners: Lauren Lee, Player of the Year; Tiana McDaniel, Defensive Player of the Year; Ginger High-Colvin and Miranda Denny were Assistant Coach of the Year and Coach of the Year for Campbellsville. And your second team all conference members over there to the right. Just off the numbers, are you giving the title of best conference to the Mid-South from last year?
Just off the numbers, I'd have to say yeah.
I think you got to.
There honestly isn't much of a debate for them to be almost half as small as other conferences and still be putting up 75 a game, 45% field goals as just a team and a unit, and realistically a conference. You can't really deny them that sort of recognition.
I'm going to be very curious when that time comes if they get 6 again. And I think, and we'll leave it here and then talk about the first questions. The biggest thing for me, and I think the reason that the Mid-South is so respected, is because of their non-conference schedules. They do not care about going out and playing people and losing. They're going to lose sometimes. That's fine. But like Coach Nelson said, it prepares you for the Mid-South, and the Mid-South prepares you for the entire NAIA. On any given night, you got to go out and battle. And so this conference last year, I do think they were the best conference. You had 6 of the 7 make it. 5 of those 6 went to the Sweet 16. 1 actually got to the Fab 4. So you got to give them props. And if I remember correctly, 2 out of the 4 number 1 seeds in the quadrants were from the Mid-South in Bethel and Campbellsville, which we're going to talk about Campbellsville. That's our first question here. You got to give it to them. Granted, I know Georgia back-to-back national champions. They're going to have something to say about that in the G-Pack. Southern Oregon, almost a perfect team. We just talked about the Cascade. There's going to be a lot of teams that we haven't, there are a lot of conferences that we haven't even talked about yet. We talked about the Crossroads. There's going to be a lot of teams that we talk about. But I think right now, we'll revisit this at the end when we talk about all the conferences and we really have a better idea who the best was. But I think me and Lex right now are going to stick with the Mid-South. But our first question for the Mid-South is, will we see a Campbellsville revenge tour? Then question number 2, is it Bethel or the Field? And then question number 3, a little bit more specific, who may have the bigger step back? University of Cumberland's or Georgetown? And then we'll do our tiers at the bottom. You see their contenders are going to be 2, playoff locks 2, at the door 1, and then break right will be 2. But we talk about that first question, Lex. Will Campbellsville have a revenge tour this season? For the people who don't know, the Campbellsville Tigers, they, again, number 1 team in their quadrant when the national tournament came around. Co-regular season champions, made it to the Mid-South championship game. They lost to Bethel, obviously, but they were the only number 1 seed in the in the tournament last year, national tournament. They didn't make it to the Fab 4. They made it to the Elite 8. They're the only ones. They lost to 5th seed Governor State, I believe. That's why I wanted to ask this question. Because to have a chip on your shoulder, I know we're talking about specifically conferences, but I just can't pass by what happened at the end of their season last year. So I'll give you the floor first. Do you think Campbellsville will have a revenge tour through the Mid-South this year?
No. And I say no so confidently because
I know we did before. When I say revenge tour, let's define revenge tour real quick for this argument, because I know we had the same thing with Sleeping Giant before. Revenge tour to me is they aren't going to run through the Mid-South. They're not going to dominate the NAIA and just go perfect this year. No. Revenge tour to me means they're going out and imposing their will on a consistent basis. They would be the number 1 seed. If you say they're going to have a revenge tour, then they're going to be the number 1 seed in the conference this year. And a team that has a chip on their shoulder and a clear mission of, we're going to show you that last year was a fluke at how it ended. On that definition, do you think the Campbellsville Tigers will have a revenge tour?
I still have to say no, because everything I agree with that they can do. They can definitely come out with a chip on their shoulder and definitely fight for what they lost last year. But I can't say that they'll be the number 1 seed. That is the only thing that makes me say no. I don't see them being number 1 anymore.
I'm not mad at it. To answer my own question, I'm going to go no to. I'm going to go no to on the fact of that specific part. I don't know if they're going to be the number 1 seed. I really, it's hard for me to say that. But on everything else in that definition,
I definitely agree.
Because
it's just the number 1 seed. I can't ignore it.
You're obviously losing Lauren Lee, Player of the Year last year, first team All-Conference member, and All-American, first team All-American. 45, 29, 83 shooting splits from the field, 3-point and free throw percentage. 17 a game, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. You're also losing Whitney Hay, put up 12 and 5 with 2 assists and a steal, 1.6 steals per game, first team All-Conference member. It's a lot you're losing. But the reason I'm very, very, very close to saying yes on the revenge tour, especially that number 1 seed part, you're returning Tyra Flowers, 9 points a game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 59% from the field, second team All-Conference member. You're returning the coach of the year and assistant coach of the year. I think that cannot be understated enough. And you're returning 4 of your top 6 scorers from last year in D. Bradley, who had 8 a game, Paige Sefrini, who had 8 a game, and Tylen Scherer, who had 7 a game. There's a world where those freshmen and sophomores and underclassmen that went through last year, experienced the highs, experienced the lows, turn around and say, not again. We're not doing this again. With that being said, the number 1 season is going to be very, very hard for Candace to do it again. But if you made me have to choose, Revenge Tour is aggressive, and that's why I wanted to use that word. Like, Revenge Tour makes it seem like you're going out and you're just going to work on everybody in front of you, no matter who it is. They're a great team. They're a great team. They put up 70, almost 75 points a game last year. They held teams under 60 points a game. They forced 22 turnovers. 13 of them were steals. Like, this team checks every single box that you can ask for. But when you lose a player like Lauren Lee, your offense is going to take a hit. It's going to. It's hard to not.
Hit.
17 points a game. That's hard to. 5 rebounds. It's hard to replace. There's gonna be 5 assists.
Efficient points. That's that too.
Efficiency. That's where I'm hesitant to give you the revenge. When we revisit this in the spring, maybe I'll say no. They're not doing it. They're on it. They're on the revenge tour. But for me right now, I agree. I do think revenge tour is aggressive, but it's just because of that one part of the definition. If it wasn't for that one part, I'd probably say revenge tour is completely in play here.
Yeah, definitely. We just can't ignore the fact that I don't think they'll hold number 1 just due to the fact that they're losing a lot.
Which brings us to number 2 on that note of losing a lot. And obviously this is going to have its own segment, so we don't have to talk about the Patriots too much here in this part. To lose a lot is an understatement for this Patriots team. They made it to the Sweet 16 last year. And I know we're gonna talk about these 2 specific players again in when we talk about who we think will have a bigger step back. But I want to give them this moment, and we'll just kind of speak on it. The Monday sisters, Cassidy Monday and Kylie Monday. Cassidy put up 14.6, 7.2 assists with 1.7 steals. Kylie put up 15.3, 6.5 assists. 6.5 rebounds, 3 assists with 3.1 steals. Cassidy was the first team all-conference member. Kylie was a second team All-American along with their first team all-conference member. Both of them shot a 44.1% for Cassidy, 47.5 for Miss Kylie, 38.4 for 3 for Cassidy, 42 for Kylie. You are losing so much offense. It's so hard for me to look at this team and just overlook that, because at the end of the day, it goes so much deeper than this, and I'm trying to save all the numbers and all the stuff that we have for when we talk about them and comparing to Georgetown. But I'll ask you this on this note. Is there a world where they can somehow, I don't even know what the word is, make up the what the Monday sisters were doing for the past few years in a 1-year turnaround?
They'd have to find a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie to you. That might have been the funniest thing you've ever said to me. That might have been the funniest thing you've ever said to me. This man said they gotta go find the rest of the weekend. They gotta go find the rest of the week.
For it to happen in a 1-year turnaround, they have to find the rest of the week, the weekend, and the months to be able to figure it out. Just because that's a lot. 30 a game. That's
shooting 40% on everything.
The Monday sisters provided 50% equally of what this UFC team was able to produce, and losing them on top of also losing Leanna McNutley is a lot, and to expect it to be turned around in a summer
pretty much
is That's a big ask. Am I ignoring the fact? Definitely not. Is it possible? Maybe there's a freshman Saturdays coming in, Like we never know. But I just I don't know.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do because these are always situations that I always look forward to because, from a coaching aspect, you look at these situations, the coaches know, like, everybody's looking at you losing the sisters and you're thinking, they're all going to think, like, what are they going to do? Who are they going to bring in? What are they going to do? Who are they developing? So that's why I'm so intrigued about it. But it's just something that we have to, it's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the room. What will the Patriots do? And again, we're going to deep dive a little bit more into them in a minute here. But we'll go from them to Freed Hardeman. On that note, the Cumberland Patriots last year they were one of the top teams when it came to field goal percentage. They led the conference in scoring, by the way, in a solid 80. Remember we talked about the Cascade? 70, you're elite. 80?
Yeah.
80's untouchable almost. And you're shooting it at a 43.5% clip. You're putting up shots. Now, the reason I want to point that out, you know what? I'm going to save that before we get back because I'm getting on my high horse and I need to wait. I need to hold it off for the last question because it's coming.
It's coming. The one thing I will say is give this USC team jersey and all those people from Multnomah.
Oh, if you're curious about what Lex said, you got to listen to the Cascade part of this episode. But we go now to Freed Hardeman. Like I mentioned, the Lions. I want to give Coach Abby Stutz her flowers. In year one, to do what she did, you can't ask for more. You can't ask for more. First year,
put on the cheers, man.
First year at the helm, and you are arguably one of the best teams in the country. You made it to the Sweet 16. You excuse me, to the Elite 8. My apologies. You have a returning class now of Carissa Curtis, Rachel Satterley, who was a second-team All-Conference member. Carissa, by the way, put up 12 points a game. Jenna Satterley put up 9.4 points per game, 40.7% from the three-point line. And then you have some very, very intriguing incoming freshmen and transfers. You are losing Kylie Odom at 11-4, which is first-team All-Conference member. But, again, you know us. We're big on returning losing value is important for us. Freed Hardeman, for me, can they unlock their offense? I really believe there is a top-notch offense somewhere in this team, especially when you have a second year now under Coach Abby. Because, again, when you're a first-year coach, it's for everybody. You're all learning it out. There is a world where the offense gets unlocked, and to be honest, they could have arguably the best returning from top and for those who know, they know where I'm going to give the best returning class to. But top heavy wise, I think Freed Hardeman might have the best returning class.
I agree. I definitely agree. I definitely think that they're not losing a tremendous amount in comparison to all the other teams. And I'll definitely give Freed Hardeman their flowers here. Monday's sisters are gone. Saturday's sisters are still here, They still have, a very solid core that they can grow off of and add into the pot with their recruiting class and their freshmen and all the supporting factors that come into making this team a success.
And the reason I believe there's an elite offense waiting here, they put up 65 points per game last year. That was 6th in the conference. Mind you, there's only 7 teams. So they were second worst in the conference, offensively speaking. But your defense, 54? You're allowing only 54 points per game? You, along with the returners we just mentioned, you're also bringing back Leakey, 6.3 points per game. Brooklyn Crotch, 6.9 points per game. Third most in field goal and 3-point field goal attempts among the returners. So she's a floor spacer that you're bringing back now in that offense. I just find it so hard to believe in year 2 under Coach Abby, you cannot get over 70. I find it so hard to believe. And even if they're not the best in the half court, because of your defense and because of the fact that you're forcing 15 turnovers a game, there's a world where it's just there. It's all about converting the open court. And one thing I'll know before we move on here, they allow their opponents 7 assists per game. The reason I look at that stat is because I know everybody looks at the NBA, looks at WNBA, and they're like, what is an assist anymore? Because you see them dribble the ball 5 times, then they're still getting assists. Exactly. For me, an assist is 2 rebounds, 2 dribbles or less. That's an assist. So if I give it to Lex and he takes 2 dribbles and shoots the ball, that's an assist for me. That's what I'm going off of. 7 assists for your opponent tells me they can't get any type of ball movement at all.
100%.
You're forcing them into isos. You're forcing them to dribble the air out of the ball. You're forcing them into tough shots. That's what I read when I see 7 opponent assists per game. 13 for them, pretty good. I think if we get that up a little bit more, we're going to be looking at a 70-point per game offense because I do believe that they have that. 65, they can get 5 more points in their sleep. I think Freed Hardeman has a chance of getting one of the best offenses in the Mid-South come next year. We go from one big cat, and actually, before we go, Coach Abby did say she's very excited about this group because of the way they play. They play together. They play great together, and that is also why I'm big on this team. And I truly believe Freed Hardeman has some things brewing here for not just the Mid-South, but the entire country. Go from one big cat to another, like I said. Georgetown Tigers. Arguably up there with the Pats, and that's why I have them. And another team that we're not going to talk too much about right now. We'll talk about them in a minute here. Arguably losing the most because you're losing Tiana McDaniels, who was a second-team All-American, a first-team All-Conference member, 15 points per game. I wanted to ask you the turnover department. Do you think that is your biggest underlining factor for this Georgetown team where you're giving the ball up 16 times, but then you're forcing your opponents to 17 turnovers? So you're losing the turnover battle, or you're winning the turnover battle technically, but it cancels out, right? Do you think the turnovers are the biggest thing for you for this Georgetown team?
100%. I find it very impossible, and I find it very hard to succeed if you're playing such great defense to produce so many turnovers, but you give the ball up just as much. It's basically like you go to the store, you grab some candy, you walk outside, you drop it, so you can't even eat it. It's just like I find that very difficult.
That might be the opposite of kid in a candy store. I think you just created the opposite of kid in a candy store.
Oh, for sure.
I like it. No, I'm with it.
Patent pending.
I'm patent pending. I'm with it. That brings us to the last 3 teams in the Mid-South. We've got Bethel, Lindsey Wilson, Cumberlands. We'll start with Cumberlands because I think it's the least that we will obviously talk about. The defense is good. The defense is legit. I don't think people understand it. Yes, they were last in the conference. Yes, they did not win a game.
They're last in a very hard conference.
So let's keep that in mind. Thank you for pointing that out. But when we talk about the defense, it's legit. What I mean by that is 65.5 opponents' points per game. That's right there with University of Cumberland's last year. We're right there with Lindsey Wilson. Like, that is great defense because you're comparing it to a Freed Hardeman who had 54. You're comparing it to a team like Bethel who was at 62. Like, this entire conference, we talked about the Cascade being a make-or-miss league because of their three-point shooting. This is whatever you want to call it. Locks, it's seatbelt, it's whatever you want to say. This is, you know what this is? The Mid-South, I'm patent pending. This is the penitentiary conference because they got y'all on lock.
Oh, yeah.
They got y'all on lock. You are not going to be able to get above 70 on them. And if you do,
or jail cell.
Pick one. This is the Mid-South penitentiary. Welcome. That part is not the issue. For me, it's going to come down to Cumberland's offense. Can you score? Can you score? You're putting up 57.8 points per game. And while, yes, Bethel, the Pats were 80. I'm talking about 80. But everybody else was 79, 75, 74, 69, 65, and 57. Like, there's a noticeable gap there between the offensive numbers. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me for Cumberland's. You're returning Emilia Tarpley, 11 points per game, 8 rebounds per game. You have Ever Walker, 9 points per game, 2 rebounds per game. You're losing Kyler Gordon. 11 points is going to be hard, especially when we're talking about offense being the main thing for them. If they get their offense going, another team turnovers, 19 turnovers a game, almost 20. It's too much. It's too much. I think for you to force 17 turnovers a game, but then give up 20, you're hurting yourself. You're your own worst enemy right now. If the Cumberland's team from Tennessee gets their offensive flow intact, I don't see a world where they can't really compete. And maybe, which I should have mentioned before, everybody in the Mid-South makes the postseason, so that's why we didn't have that question for this, because everybody's going to make the conference tournament. But with that being said, it's a one-off game. If Cumberland's gets their offense together in that one-off game, don't be surprised if they upset somebody, because their defense is good enough. It's just about their offense.
100%. All it takes for this Cumberland team is who wakes up and gets out of the bed, who has that warm cup of coffee for the game, who has their favorite post-game meal, who stretches correctly, who is feeling the best waking up, who walks on the court and can feel that the buckets are going to go in. It truly just depends on who on that given night is going to help offensively produce at a consistent rate.
Which brings us to our last two teams here. Lindsey Wilson, which we'll do first, and then Bethel. The Blue Raiders from Lindsey Wilson last year, they're sneaky. They're very sneaky now. Offensive step is needed, though. And another one, points, turnovers. Because you got to remember, in a conference like the penitentiary, which I'm now going to call the Mid-South the penitentiary conference because it's just legit and it fits perfectly. You got to take care of the ball. We just talked about Cumberland's with almost 20 turnovers a game. Now Lindsey Wilson's at 14. And 14 might not seem like a lot. Some coaches are going to be okay with 14. But in the Mid-South, 14 feels like 20. Because these teams are going to force, and it's also the way the turnovers happen. If it's, sometimes the defense is great defense, great coverage, good trap, good spot, whatever. But if it's turnovers where you're even bad shots are turnovers too. Like you're forcing bad passes because of the pressure. There's those turnovers we can't have. You can't have this. There's going to be no team this year in the conference that I feel like is going to have under 10 turnovers a game. It's just not realistic. But that is why you can't give up the freebies. You can't give up the unforced turnovers. That's going to be the biggest thing. Talking about offensive step, Lindsey Wilson last year, they were 69. 1 point. Again, we talk about that 1 point to get to 70. If you can get to 70 in this kind of conference, that's legit.
Set up for success.
That's legit. So I think that's gonna be the biggest thing. I know you'll talk about the returners and what they're losing, because they are losing Big and Taylor Guest, first team all conference member. It's the offense for me for the Lindsey Wilson Blue Raiders. If you can get the offense intact, you shoot the ball pretty well from the 3-pointer, 32.6%. You don't shoot too many, which could be good or bad depending on how you look at it. You're only putting up 4 attempts a game. You're making 4 a game. Shoot more, maybe not. It's a matter of opinion in that situation. But I think there's another offensive leap here, but it ain't going to be shooting. It's going to be turnovers for me.
Definitely. And with them losing a very big piece with first team all conference Taylor Guest, who provides 15, 5 and 3, basically, it's a lot for them to have to make up. But they do keep Sanaya Shelton, they keep a Claire Fleming and a Jair Thomas, who easily amongst the three of them produce a little over 33 with a decent amount of rebounds as well as assists. It definitely does help them, because I definitely see Shelton, Fleming, and Thomas adding maybe 3-4 points per game to their arsenal. They have the upskill. They have the potential to definitely take that step up. And all that this Lindsey Wilson team needs is 2 to 3 more people to step up on offense, whether it's having someone who is a designated ball handler to keep the ball more, help it keep it in the cell itself of the team, not trying to throw it away. Just help run the team a lot more smooth with that and developing their offense a little bit more. They're doing very well with their opponent's points per game. If they increase their own points per game, they definitely jump to maybe a 5 or 4.
And we'll segue into question number 2 with this Bethel team, because question number 2 is, of course, Is it Bethel or the field? And the reason I say that is not just because Bethel won the Mid-South in one of the craziest runs I've ever seen. I don't know if you actually know it, so I'll give people a quick summary of it. Bethel was a 5th seed. They started the month of February. Big win. Then they dropped 2. They were going on a losing streak. Last game of the regular season against the Pats. They win in overtime. Senior night. They turned that into a conference championship run as the 5th seed, they beat Georgetown. They beat both the Pats and the Tigers. Like, they ran through the gauntlet in the Mid-South to then earn the number 1 seed in their quadrant and make it all the way to the Fab Four. The momentum that they had, added in with you returning the Hart sisters in Madison Hart, who I think is going to have a player of the year in the NAIA type of season. Like, she might have that type of campaign. Last year, first team all-conference member, first team All-American. Micah Hart, who was a freshman of the year in the conference, first team all-conference member, second team All-American as a freshman. Hallie Turner, MJ Simmons, Kylie Reynolds, Mikey Buchanan, who X Factor, 11 points. She could easily be a 15-point per game scorer, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about her in a minute here. This team has gotten me by a chokehold that I don't think people really understand. The question was Bethel or the field. Everything in my brain is saying go with the field. This Mid-South is too deep. It's not going to be worth it. I'm going with my heart. I'm going with Bethel to be the team to beat in the Mid-South. Again, Madison Hart, 16 a night, almost 17, 7.6 rebounds, 1.2 steals, 47% from the field, 83% from the free throw line. She don't even do damage from the three-point line. That's not in her game. Don't get it twisted, though. She could hit one. She gonna hit the one you need. But I'm more bullish on this Bethel team because you had 3 freshmen starting for you. They're going to be together for the next few years. Led by Micah Hart, who, again, as a freshman, was a second-team All-American, 18-5 a night with 1.9 steals, almost 2. I'm giving her 2 just because. 43% from the field, 37% from the three-point line, 81% from the free throw line. I am buying all the stock. I am driving the bus. I am planting myself on the Micah Hart hill today from day one. Granted, ain't breaking news. Everybody out there that knows her knows she's a bucket. She's a hooper. There's basketball players and hoopers. She's a hooper. But I truly believe the depth of this Bethel team, you're returning 8 out of the 10 rotation players from last year that experienced that. Am I saying that that they can do that again? No. Would love to see it. Great for the stories, but no. I just think that this year they won't need it. I think this year they're going to be a top 4 seed in the Mid-South. I think this year they're going to be maybe even a regular season champion. I think that's where they're heading now because of the year they just had, the development they're going to have this summer. I'm so excited, and I will hand it over to you with this. Mikey Buchanan, she's an X factor for me. 11.5 points per game, 41 from the field, 34 from the three-point line. I need that free throw percentage to go up, though. I ain't going to say the number, but I'm going to need that free throw percentage to go up a little bit, Micah. The reason I like her as an X factor, one word, consistency. 40% of her games last year were under 10 points per game, which basically means almost half of her games last year that she played in were under 10 points per game. She's too good of a ball player for that. I need that number. You're going to have off nights, and that's fine. And when I say consistency, what I mean is if you go for 15 and 12, the next 2 games cannot be 3s and 5s. I need more than that. So that's my biggest thing for Micah. I need her to be more consistent for this Bethel team. But I'm buying all the stock. I'm going Bethel over the field. Lex, how crazy am I?
Not crazy enough, because the same way that you said that you wouldn't put Bethel to be number 1 seed to go into the national championship and run business that they did last year, you're not drinking enough of the Kool-Aid. Personally, for me, I have Bethel taking the number 1 quite easily, as they are probably one of the 7 teams within the conference who isn't losing that much. They have the front that they brought with them, the national championship. They have all the pieces put together, and all they are doing is gaining. They're gaining transfers. They're gaining freshmen possibly. They aren't losing that much. The only thing that they lost was the opportunity for the chip last year. But they have the ability to not only recreate that, but go even farther. And the only reason why I say you're not drinking the Kool-Aid enough is because, and we'll go to this with our rankings pretty soon, but I have them as number 1. But that, again, that is just me. I have a history. I have a past of being correct, though.
All I'm going to say is that Kool-Aid, it ain't red. That's that purple Kool-Aid. We're drinking the purple Kool-Aid, Lex, and we're going to do it all year. And I'm here for it. Oh, yeah. I'm here for it. Now, this Bethel team is going to be legit. They do have some incoming transfers that I have on good authority that are going to be legit. They're going to be impact players right away. This team is dangerous. This team is dangerous. And we'll segue from a team that, though, is returning a lot to 2 teams specifically that we feel could be taking a step back. And who do you think will have the bigger step back is the final question for the Mid-South. University of Cumberland Patriots or the Georgetown Tigers? Lex, I'll let you go first here. Who, for you, will be having that step back?
Personally, I definitely see for Cumberland.
I'm so glad we went. We each went 1. I'm so glad. We didn't say this. Going into these videos, I just want you guys to know we never know what the other person's gonna say. We share notes. We look at it differently, obviously, but we don't know. So I'm so glad you went with the Pats because I'm gonna go with the Tigers. But talk to me about why the Pats are your team.
I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I just feel like the pieces that they're losing, they won't be able to fill in the gap quickly enough to be able to hold up against Bethel and hold up against the other 5 teams in the conference that are actually running for it. I see that they take a seat this year to really focus in on what their goals are, their standards are, and spend a year developing that way by the time the year after comes, they can know how to put up a fight again.
And I'll give my notes on the past 2. I did have notes on them, even though I'm going with the Tigers. For me, for the Patriots, you're returning Lakin Burke and Joy Kendrick. Burke was a first-team all-conference member, 11.4 points per game, 7 rebounds. Joy, 9 points per game, 5 rebounds. She's actually going to be an underrated player offensively because 45% from the field and 48% from the three-point line. She is the best three-point field goal shooter returning from last year. Among the returners, I should say. She was 4th in attempts last year, 2nd in makes. She was number 2 in percentage at 48.1. She is going to be, I think, the biggest possible step that this past team is going to need. You're losing 4 of your 6 top scorers. That's 45.6 points per game from last year. You're losing 7 out of the 7 players who scored over 6 points per game last year, only returning 2 of them, the 2 that I just mentioned. That's 51.9 points per game now that you are losing from an 80-point per game team that is over half by a clear margin. We're not saying that we're preying on their downfall. That's not what we're saying, guys. What we're saying is you're losing so much offense. We just said it. 60 points per game, average offense. I think it's an average offense. Anywhere between 60 to 66, 67. I think you're an average offense, right?
Yeah.
68, 69, 70 to about 76. You're an elite offense in my book. You're a great offense. We'll say great. We'll go great. Anything above that, you're an elite offense. If you're putting up 80 points, you're an elite offense. It's hard to be an elite offense one time, let alone multiple seasons in a row. What we're saying is the step back is going to be massive offensively. Now,
tremendously.
If you cut it in half, and they're not half in general, but if you instead of 80, they're at 6, they're at 77, 75, 74. You're in a elite offense still, so you're still legit. but that's a big, like 6 points per game is gonna be a big dip for them. So I just feel like that's the biggest thing for me. They do have a new batch of players. You know what I'm saying? They're one of the teams whose roster is out already, so I did see it before we started recording. 9 new players from last year. That could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. We don't know yet. We got to see it out on the court. But there is a world where I know they went out and recruited. They found players. Did they go find a Monday Sisters? No, those are one in a billion type of situation, let alone to have 2 in that billion. But I do think that they're going to be an intriguing team next year. The way they play, they shoot the 3 ball a lot. It's the only way you're going to get to 80 points a game in a 40-minute game.
Exactly.
18 3-point field goal percentage, 3-point field goal attempts per game last year. And you almost shot 40%, 36.7. That's efficient. And I think that's what we talked about before. Efficiency is going to be the biggest thing for this Pats team.
If I know math, that's maybe 6 or 7 per game. That's almost 20, 22, 23, 24.
And
right there.
And obviously, when you have an identity like that, for the coaches, it's easy to go out and find that. I want to find efficient shooters who shoot good shots, can get out and run, get out in transition, and be able to hit contested shots as well. You got to be able to hit those contested shots because, like I always say, once you get to this level in college, ain't no more open shots unless the defense messed up. You're going to have a hand in your face at some point.
Especially in the penitentiary. This is a defensive league. And
then rebounding was very impressive as well. 43.9. You have a plus in the rebound margin of 13.7, almost 14. You're out rebounding teams by 14 possessions. And that takes in, obviously, offense and defensive possessions. That's another, if we go off just free throws, that's another 14 points right there. So there's a lot of places where not just a 3-point scoring, but the way that they get to their buckets is going to be there. Can they continue to do this? It's going to be hard, obviously, the way they play that style. The last note before we go over to the Tigers where I think they're going to take the bigger step back. The turnovers are misleading. 18 turnovers a game for them. The way they play, it's kind of warranted. So I'm not too upset about it. Obviously, as any coach, you definitely don't want to have almost 20 turnovers a game. But the way you play, and since you're also forcing 18 on your opponents, kind of cancels out. So I'm not tripping about it too much. But I do think I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't point that out. But that's my biggest thing with the Pats.
You make a lot of sense. Like I've been saying, you can't be expected of winning a chip and going all the way if you're offering just as much as you're trying to take. You can't have a scenario where you're gaining so many turnovers, but you're also giving them away as well. It's just that's not feasible.
Before I talk about this Tigers team, since I'm the one since I picked them, and then we're going to revisit because, again, we didn't technically define what bigger step back is. So we'll define it and see if our answers change. What do you feel about for this Georgetown team? I know we didn't really talk about it too much. I know we talked about the turnovers earlier. What do you feel when you look at this Georgetown team and what they could be losing or are losing and the step back that they could be having?
Personally, big upside because they can gain a lot with the replacement of the 4 big pieces that they are losing. But that's exactly what it is. It's a possibility. It's a what if kind of situation. We don't know what can come from who's going to be able to step up and take over McDaniel's spot or fill in the gap for Lombardi or Stevenson or Clock. We really don't know. And with that leaves me to question, where are they in comparison to everybody else? To be completely honest, if I were to answer this question right now, drinking the Kool-Aid that I'm drinking, they're touching 5 and 6. And that, in comparison to the goal where everybody is trying to reach, is, Bethel made an upset. Bethel made such a run that hasn't really been seen before. They want that same type of spotlight, that same type of drive, that same type of respect. And with that, how are you going to get there? That's a question that I can't figure out the answer. I'm going to have to see it before I even comment on it realistically. But this Georgetown team has the potential to really cause a lot of upsetting, but it's just how they piece it together. That's just really it.
That is why I went with them, because you can argue that the Pats are losing more from a team standpoint in the Monday Sisters and in Leanna. But what Georgetown is losing is the culture a little bit. 7 seniors were on last year's team. And again, assuming that all 7 have graduated, that's a decent chunk of your offense. That's a decent chunk of your team, of your culture, of your locker room. Not to mention McDaniels and Lampardi and Stevens and Clock, who 15, 7, 12, and 10 respectively, including 3 of them being all-conference members, whether on first or second team, and 1 of them being an All-American. We mentioned what the Pats are losing from a scoring standpoint. You know, again, 45.6 from the 4 that you're losing 4 of your top 6 scorers for the Pats. For the Tigers, 46.2. You're losing more. Like, you're losing more offensively. And for me, I just feel like that's the biggest thing. For returners, I'm looking at Abby Vanderny and Anna Long. They're going to have to take a leap, like a jump. You know, 8 points per game for Abby, 7 for Anna. Very curious to see what this Georgetown team is. They might be, for me, they're my biggest question mark. You guarded the 3-ball very well at 27.3 opponents, 3-point field goal percentage, 16 to 17 on the turnover department for them and their opponents. There's just a lot of question marks that I have for this Georgetown team. And you know me, I'm big on the continuity and culture. You're losing 7 seniors while the Pats are losing a lot of scoring and offense, and that's kind of their identity. And the Monday Sisters have kind of embodied how the Pats want to play. Georgetown might be losing a lot more internally, and I feel like that's why I'm going to go with them as being the team that I feel probably takes a bigger step back. For what I mean by that, when I say bigger step back, I mean a team that, again, everybody makes the playoffs. Both teams hosted an opening round, a first round of the playoffs. I got to stop saying that. A first round of the conference tournament. Bigger step back for me means which of those 2 teams do you think will not be a top 4 seed in the Mid-South tournament? Does that change your answer from the Pats to the Georgetown, or does that keep it the same?
My answer stays.
Same. I do believe Georgetown is, like you said, in jeopardy of being a 5. Cumberland could drop, because they got 80 points. You drop that down. I think that's a possibility as well. But that brings us to our final part of this Mid-South Penitentiary Conference preview, our tiers list. Again, to refresh the people at home, we have 4 tiers. Contenders, playoff locks, at the door, break right. For those of you who have never heard this part of the episode, contenders, obviously teams that we feel could win the regular season and or the conference tournament championship. For your playoff locks, teams we know will be in the playoffs no matter what. For your at the door, teams that we feel are just there. They're knocking at the door. They're ringing the doorbell. They're trying to figure out they could even get in this season, or they could not. And your break right teams are teams that we feel it's got to all go your way for you to make the playoffs and be able to make a real push at it. Again, because all these teams make the postseason, we're going to change a little bit to where these tiers are in retrospect to winning the conference tournament championship. So in this case, break right, meaning everything's got to break right for you to win the tournament. Same thing at the door. Could possibly win it, could not win it, type of thing. Playoff locks, we'll word that as contenders are legit contenders like normal. Playoff locks, we'll say that those are teams that could make the finals. Not necessarily win it, but at least make it. Get there.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to go 2 for the contenders, 2 for playoff locks, 1 for at the door, and then 2 for break right teams. As always, we'll start with the bottom. Who is your first break right team in the Mid-South this year?
Pats.
Wow. If I could fall out of my chair, I would.
Do it.
That was a bus driver uppercut. I went backwards. If this was a chair, I would have fell. The Pats? Wow, dog. You're gonna catch some heat for that one. I'm here for it, but you're gonna catch some heat for that one. I need some explanation. Break right? Not even at the door?
Break right. Because you said everybody makes a playoff, and according to your standards, breaking right means that everything has to fall in alignment for them to win.
Okay. I'm listening. I'm listening. I do have a question. I'm gonna give you a question on that note when you're done.
I just feel like and again, this may just be me harping on the days of the week, but we all know waking up on a Monday, raining, but these Monday sisters provided so much life, much emphasis, so much excitement, so much of a core value to this Cumberland's team that without them, the Mondays are back to being draining. The Mondays are back to being something you dread.
You told me, obviously break right, meaning everything goes your way. Give me the 3 things that you need to see or feel like need to happen for it to break right for the Pats. What are the 3 things that you're looking at?
I need Joy Kendrick to step up. That's 1.
Okay.
9.5, 5, and shooting split is actually very phenomenal. I need more.
Okay.
I need that to jump from 9.5 to at least a 16. I also need, in some form, whoever they do bring in to either have the same sort of impact as the 3 that they're leaving or more. When
you say same, do you mean statistical or do you mean just impact and on the
impact
offense?
like within the team? Because the stats can always be filled in like spread across the team, but impact as far as their presence.
Okay. And last one?
3 for them to be able to be there. And the last that I need is that turnover ratio.
I can see that. All right. I mean, I see your thought process. I see it. But that's gonna be that's gonna be a hot take right there. That might be the first real hot take of the season. For me, my first break right team is the other Cumberland's team. I'm going with them. I feel like they're okay. So you're going double Cumberland's. I'm going with one Cumberland's. The other team I have breaking right, Lindsey Wilson. I'm just the offense is just too much of a question for me. You gotta figure out a way to be able to get to that 70, and because of that, they weren't the worst offensive team in the conference, obviously, but something about it just doesn't sit right with me because you're losing a Taylor Guess, 15 points per game. Shelton need to step up. You do have it's there. I don't think the in that break right for me at least between Cumberland's and Lindsey Wilson there is a gap. So I'm not saying that Lindsey Wilson is close. Lindsey Wilson has a chance to make a real run at it. They're closer to at the door for me, but going by the rules, I gotta put them there. That I feel more comfortable, and I feel like it's too many questions for me on that end for Lindsey Wilson. So for me, it's Lindsey Wilson and Cumberland's of Tennessee, and you're going double Cumberland's.
For sure, I just feel like with Lindsey Wilson there, my break, my at the door team for me because as you pointed out, offense, and I'm gonna quote you on this. You said offense is something that could be fixed. Offense can only be solved by going to the gym. Defense is something that's a lot more skill and will based. That's a little more, difficult to try to just find. But offense is all about just putting in hours. That's doable, and that's not something that's impossible for this team.
Ladies and gentlemen, he got me. He hit me with the receipts. I respect it. That's your at the door team. My at the door team, Georgetown. Just talked about them. I feel like they're just losing so much from a continuity aspect. I feel like they're just losing so much from a situation of in that locker room. I'm going to go with Georgetown being the team that, because of what they've done, they still have a chance to do it. If the playoff bracket falls their way, they could be hitting the ground running. They could be next year's Bethel. Now and they don't.
That's why they're a lock for me because they have the potential. Like they have all the upsides. The only thing that is falling out of their way is who they bring in to fill in those gaps.
I just feel like for you to be this year's Bethel, you're gonna need a Hart sister. So it's gonna be hard to have a player like that, especially when you're losing a player McDaniels. But there is a groundwork there, similar to what you said. Offense can be fixed. The defense is there for Georgetown, but the in locker room, inner sanctum, so to speak, is where I'm going to be most curious about for the underclassmen to step up and being that leadership type of role. Those are at the doors. Playoff locks. Teams that we feel could at least get to the conference tournament championship. You went first last time and absolutely blew me off the water. I'm going to go first because it's obvious I'm going with the Pats in this situation. I do believe they will the three things you said are perfect, and that's why I'm going with them for being team that can get back there. I just feel like they're going to have the chance. They're going to have the chance. Please at least tell me. And I'll take it. I'll explain why. But tell me you've got Campbellsville in here. Oh, he doesn't have Campbellsville in here. Okay. Who's your first team? Just tell me who your first team is.
Campbellsville is the other playoff lock.
Okay. So they are in here. All right, cool. I'll take them. I'll take them. You go ahead and you just tell me who made you just take a sip of water.
The Pats. The way that the Pats are still so comfortably high with no certain proof of them being able to fill in what they miss. That's like we talk about uncertainty, and I think the Pats have the biggest uncertainty that I just can't gamble on. Like if I were to get all of my stock and place it into something that would produce in the next 2-3 years, I wouldn't be able to comfortably put it on the Pats.
All right. So if Campbellsville is in, the Pats are not, who else are you putting in playoff lock?
Let's go through this. I have at the bottom, I put
the Cumberlands. You put both Cumberlands.
And then
Lindsay,
right after that,
Lindsay Wilson.
Lindsay Wilson.
Georgetown
was
the first.
And Campbellsville would be my other playoff lock. So then at the top, it's Bethel and Freed-Hardeman.
Campbellsville, I really like them. I think they're closer to contenders than they are to playoff locks, for being honest. I think we both like what they're going to be doing this year. The reason is, and I feel like this is probably your reason too, I'm still kind of, again, uncertainty. I'm still uncertain on how last year's going to affect them. It could affect them the way we think, where it's like we're hitting the ground running. We want to prove that last year, the way it ended was not what we wanted it to end, and not that we wanted it to end. We wanted, not just in the Mid-South tournament, but in the national tournament, like we want to do better. And I think Campbellsville has it all laid out. Like they're going to be able to while they're losing, obviously, Lauren Lee, and I think that's the other reason you're losing the player of the year. It's going to be hard for you to be exactly what you were, unless you can go find a player of the year. Exactly. I think that they're going to be right there. They're my wait and see team. Of it makes sense for them to be a contender. Just want to see it.
Conference is a wait and see for me.
There is a world where that is. Talk to me about Freed-Hardeman. What I went on my soliloquy about them, about why I like them, but why do you like them being a contender? I have them as a contender as well. We have the same two contenders, Bethel and Freed-Hardeman. We've talked about Bethel. I could talk about Bethel all day. We both like Bethel. Why do you like Freed-Hardeman? Kool-Aid.
Honestly, they're the team that I feel with Bethel, they aren't losing a tremendous amount. Yes, Freed-Hardeman is losing Kaylee Odom, who was their first team all conference, but they have a core. And one thing that we speak about a lot is continuity, which is they have the ability to, but they have a solid group of freshmen. They have the facilities to be able to make it that far without having to bend their back so much. I feel like they can reach that point without having to depend on the dice rolling their way. They have all of the factors to do that without it having to be a luck situation. And that's why they're up there for me.
Same. To be honest with you, again, Freed-Hardeman, like you said, I think in a conference where Granted, there's 7 teams, so it's not that many teams that have a question mark on. But I think you do have a good point in saying that the Mid-South is a conference where each team has something that kind of a little bit of a question mark there, except for Freed-Hardeman and Bethel. I think those two are the 2 teams that, on paper, and you could, like you said, buy in the stock. I think you can put the most stock on them being the safest bet to be what they were last year. You know, in Bethel's case, that was a Fab 4 team. Are we saying that right now? No, but be the teams to be in the Mid-South. Freed-Hardeman was a 3rd seed. Bethel was a 5 seed. I could see them being. The Mid-South is so good that even if they were 3-5 again, I would still be like, that doesn't mean anything because they all make the postseason.
For sure.
And we've seen what that can happen when it's a 1 week. 1 week can change everybody's season, to be honest with you. So I'm big on the Lions too. Same thing with the Bethel. We talked about them. The Kool-Aid is the Kool-Aid is the Kool-Aid. We're drinking it. We love that team. We think they're going to be not just the Mid-South contender, but they could be up there for that red banner when it's all said and done. But that is going to wrap up our part 2 of conference previews for the Cascade and the Mid-South. If you guys have been with us the entire over 2 hours, I'm pretty sure now, we appreciate you guys. We really love the support you guys have shown on our socials, on our YouTube, on our podcast, and we're so excited for the season to come. Again, this is all fun, just previewing, trying to get everybody excited for the season that is. Stay tuned for the next episode because that's going to be a real doozy. I will tell you guys now the teams that we're going to be doing are going to be the Heart of America and the new and improved Frontier Conference. That's going to be a lot to definitely talk about with what they've added in that conference. But again, thank you guys so much for sticking along with us. My name is Manny. His name is Darlex, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.